Good morning. My name is Jessica Johnson, and we are going to start today's meeting of the New York State Security Guard Advisory Council. The Security Guard Advisory Council is having hearings today to determine whether certain guard training school approvals and security guard instructor certifications should be revoked. I am Jessica Johnson, and as chair of the SGAC, I will be presiding over the hearings. These hearings are subject to the open meetings law and as such are being recorded. Regarding suspension pending revocation process, Title IX of the New York State Official Compilation of Codes, Rules, and Regulations, NYCRR Section 6029.7C and 6028.4C, gives the commissioner the authority to suspend the approval granted to a security guard training school and or suspend the certification granted to a security guard instructor pending a hearing to determine revocation. Per section 6028.4, the approval of a security guard training school may be suspended pending revocation by the commissioner at any time. Reasons for such revocation may include, but not be limited to, the violation of any applicable rules and regulations or violations of any provision of Article 7A or the general business law. Per section 6029.7, an individual's security guard instructor certification may be suspended pending revocation by the commissioner. Reasons may include, but not be limited to, the violation of any provision of Part 6029, Security Guard Instructor Standards and Qualifications. All parties who are suspended pending revocation are entitled to request a hearing within 15 days of the notice of suspension. We are here today because you have chosen to exercise that right to request a hearing. The hearing process is as follows. The hearings will be conducted in accordance with the New York State Administrative Procedure Act, SAPA. Article 3 of SAPA, entitled Adjudicatory Proceedings, set forth procedures for administrative hearings, including timeframes, notice, included substance, rules adopted by agencies, argument, and settlement. SAPA delineates the powers of the presiding officer, me, as chair in this matter, and authorizes me to regulate the course of these hearings. As an overview, we will hear one case at a time. DCJS will first present testimony and evidence as to why they believe that such approvals and certifications should be revoked. Respondents will have an opportunity to question DCJS witnesses after DCJS presents each witness. Then respondents and or their attorneys may produce any evidence supporting their position. Once respondents have presented their case, DCJS will have the opportunity to question respondents' witnesses. Council members will have an opportunity to question DCJS or respondents' witnesses after witnesses are questioned by both parties. Standard of proof and evidentiary rules. This type of hearing is not subject to the same rules of evidence observed in courts of law. I will rule on any objection. SAPA Section 306 specifies that the standard of review here is that the agency's determination must be supported by and in accordance with substantial evidence. Addressing substantial evidence, the New York State Court of Appeals, the New York State's highest court, this has described substantial evidence in which the court in part articulates, we emphasize that the substantial evidence standard is a minimal standard. It is less than a preponderance of the evidence. Regarding hearsay, the same decision also noted, moreover, hearsay is admissible as competent evidence in an administrative proceeding and if sufficiently relevant and probative. Hearsay is a written or oral statement or even body language that was made outside of the courtroom that is presented within the courtroom. Regarding determination, after both parties have presented their case and the council members have concluded questioning, the council will deliberate on whether or not the approvals or certifications should be revoked. The council will deliberate in executive session after each hearing. Executive session means that only the council will provide a recommendation on each case to the commissioner of DCJS. Per NYC RR 6028.4, the commissioner will make the ultimate decision in the matter. The commissioner, in writing, will render his decision and the reasons for each decision within 90 days after the date of the hearing. A copy of the written decision will be sent to you. Finally, before we get started, as a reminder, all hearings will be recorded, so please speak clearly and loudly. That concludes my opening remarks. We will now have opening remarks by Johanna Sullivan.
Hello, everyone. Thank you and welcome to the Security Guard Advisory Council and this hearing. I think one of the things that might be helpful is if we could go around the room and just all of us introduce ourselves. We do have a quorum here today, just for the record, to be clear. So I'm Johanna Sullivan. I'm the Director of the Office of Public Safety within the Division of Criminal Justice Services and the Security Guard Council program. The Security Guard program is within our office.
Mike Bonds, Deputy Commissioner for the Office of Public Safety.
Todd Murray, I work in the Office of Public Safety.
Joseph Archibald, responding. John Monaco, respondent. David Zeldin, member, Security Guard Advisory Council.
Nick Michaelides, Armed and Unarmed School Security.
Jessica Johnson, Chair, Security Guard Advisory Council.
Anthony Lauro, Vice Chair, Security Guard Advisory Council.
Matthew Ventura, retired New York State Police, owner and President of Atlas Security Services.
Bruce Solom, member, Security Guard Advisory Council.
Colleen Glavin, Deputy Commissioner and Counsel for DCJS.
Matt Griffin, Associate Training Technician.
Rebecca Hickok, I'm just the administrative assistant.
Rebecca's in the Security Guard program, does a lot of the back work. And sir?
Oh, Jens Cook, spectator.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. So we're happy to be able to do this in person. I think it's really wonderful now that, we've had a few years where we haven't been able to do things in person. So I'm happy that we're able to be here in person. And I know we have some new members that are now in person for the first time. So that's great. Thank you very much for being with us, Mr. Ventura. At this time, Chair, I'll turn it back over to you to do the proceedings.
As a matter of housekeeping, we will start by approving the minutes from the previous two Security Guard Advisory Council meetings. On Friday, December 17th, we held the 2021, we held the 47th meeting of the Security Guard Advisory Council. Has each of you had the opportunity to review the minutes?
Have I make a motion to accept the minutes? Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? There being none, motion carries. Those minutes are approved. We also have meeting minutes from the 48th meeting of the Security Guard Advisory Council, which was held on Tuesday, December 6th, 2022. Has everyone had the opportunity to review?
Yes. Make a motion to accept the minutes.
Mr. Zeldin had.
Second.
Mr. Michaelides, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So the meeting minutes have been approved. We'll now proceed to the revocation hearing of Bushido Security Training.
Good morning. Not yet. Good morning, Madam Chair. Thank you. Before we get started today, I wanted to just place on the record that I've previously had conversations with Attorney Dubois Rayner.
Mr. Rayner, yes.
Mr. Rayner is unable to be here today. He emailed me this morning and said he has a family emergency and that his clients are comfortable and intend to proceed pro se today. And I just wanted to put that on the record and give Mr. Archibald and Mr. Monaco a chance to confirm that that is the case on how they want to proceed. They, I believe, are aware and have, that they are entitled to have him here, but and they are prepared to proceed today.
Gentlemen,
Yes. Can I make a comment just so that it's on the record about your opening statements? My license is already revoked. So my license was suspended and revoked, even though I had requested a hearing early on. My license was suspended on or about October the 8th. I think that's when I signed for it. And it was revoked December 13th. So we're having the hearing, but it's kind of a moot point because my license has already been revoked, and I'm having the hearing to see if my license will be revoked, which is in fact already revoked.
okay. So just for clarification, when you say license, are you referring?
I mean, my security guard instructor certification.
Okay. So we want to give you the opportunity to have a hearing. So based on the conversation today, the information that was presented, then we as a council will make a recommendation as to what should happen moving forward.
Okay.
So just so it's understood that.
No, but I just wanted on record to make the point that my license was suspended and there was a rush to revoke my certification. I mean, when I made the request for a hearing, there was ample time to just give me my hearing, and after the council heard my side, you can determine whether or not to revoke my security certification. That's all.
Understood. So your comment has been noted.
Thank you.
We will give you the opportunity to present your case.
Thank you.
And then in executive session.
Thank you.
We'll follow the procedures as outlined.
Thank you.
Thank you. I also wanted to note on the record that Matthew Cochran, a co-director of the school, is not present today. And my understanding is that he will not be attending.
Yeah, he's the director, not the co-director.
He's the director. Okay, so I just want to place that on the record.
Colleen, do we have anything, I just want to make sure the record is from Mr. Cochran indicating he still would like to challenge his revocation. Is that still
I
our
have
understanding?
no communication regarding that.
I have spoken to him, and like I spoke to you just before the meeting, because he have two parents who are very elderly and are in sort of a hospice state, he couldn't really, that's a priority in his life. So he's not going to show. However you take that is how you take it. But his priorities are with his parents who are not in a good position right now.
I would propose that we just proceed with testimony regarding the school. And I guess that reminds me, I had conversations with Mr. Archibald and Mr. Monaco previously about going forward with Mr. Monaco's hearing first, because he has somewhere to be later today. And I have no objection to that, and we would proceed that way. I believe there are three different issues or hearings today. The underlying facts are very similar, so there will be some repetition, but we can proceed with Mr. Monaco, Mr. Archibald, and then the school third. And hopefully we will we'll get through everything we need to get through in a timely fashion, but I think we'll be able to do that. We also provided the hearing book that everyone has prior. We provided that to the respondent's attorney on Friday afternoon, and I believe all the council members have that in front of them. I spoke with Mr. Archibald earlier today and about referring to the hearing book when possible for ease of everyone with respect to the exhibits and conversation and testimony. Also, one last thing, my conversations with Mr. Archibald as well, we discussed that he will be I don't want to use the term representing because he's not an attorney, but he will be conducting a hearing for Mr. Monaco and asking him questions for him.
Just for clarification,
Sure.
because you're the attorney in the room, I never pretend otherwise. In an administrative hearing, a non-attorney is allowed to represent someone in just quotation marks, right?
Yes.
Correct? Okay. I don't want to overstep my bounds. You scared me for
There
a
are,
second.
in my
You scared me
understanding
for a
of
second.
the State Administrative Procedure Act, that in administrative hearings, there are a lawyer, you're entitled to have your lawyer present. There is also instances where individuals, employees of agencies, labor relations specialists, that they also can conduct hearings. We have no objection to you
Okay.
proceeding
All
today.
right. Thank you.
And that will be on behalf of, for the school and Mr. Cochran, is that correct?
I can, but because Mr. Cochran is not here to say that, I don't know how you want to handle it. But, I have the book, I have the exhibits against the school, myself, and Mr. Monaco. However you want to proceed, I'm comfortable with it.
I think, why don't we address that when we get there? If you're comfortable with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Mr. Archibald, do you have any further questions for me before we start?
No.
Shall I proceed, Madam Chair?
Please do.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, members of the council. As you have already heard, we are here to conduct a hearing related to Bushido Security Training School, and this first hearing will address an allegation related to Mr. Matthew Cochran and violations of the New York State compilation of codes, rules, and regulations. There are several relevant provisions. Section 6027.6, minimum standards of the 8-hour annual in-service training course. Section 6027.11, requirements for conducting a security training course. Section 6028.3, requirements for approval of a security guard training school. And section 6028.4, suspension and revocation of approval of a security guard training school. In order to proceed, we will ask for testimony from Matthew Griffin, who's right here next. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you introduce yourself to the council, please?
My name is Matthew Griffin. I'm the Associate Training Tech within the Office of Public Safety, overseeing the security guard program unit.
Okay. You got my second question too. And how long have you held that position?
Held that position for a little over 1 year.
Right. And were you previously employed with the Division of Criminal Justice Services?
I started employment with DCJS in November 2014 as a senior training tech in the security guard program unit.
Okay. Can you tell us briefly what the security guard training program unit does?
Yes, we oversee Section 89N of the Security Guard Act, which mandates certain trainings be conducted to obtain and maintain a security guard license or registration card, as it's said in the law. We review for approval school applications, instructor applications, and also training waiver applications. And then we are also the agency that collects the rosters from approved training schools that are then transmitted to Department of State for licensing purposes. We also will receive complaints against, or complaints of allegations of noncompliance with the regulations in regard to approved security guard training schools and instructors.
All right, and prior to coming to DCJS, were you employed?
I was.
And where were you employed?
I was a police officer with the New York State University Police from from 1997 to 2014, prior to joining DCJS. And I was promoted to investigator in 2003 and served in that capacity from 2003 to 2014 as a police investigator.
And as a police officer and police investigator, did you receive training?
Yes.
Can you tell us briefly a little bit about that training?
I received, obviously, the basic academy, and then I received training when I became an investigator in interview and interrogation techniques. I also went through the 2-week basic investigator school, as well as other trainings on, financial crimes, identity theft, and various other investigative technique trainings.
All right. And I'm going to go back to your duties at DCJS now. Does your position require you to have a familiarity with the rules and regulations governing security guard training schools?
It does.
And in what capacity do you have that familiarity?
We are the unit that enforces those regulations, and we read and review them. I mean, that's just part of what we do when we come here, is you have to learn the regs.
Okay. And can you tell us a little bit about the different trainings that you provide?
We oversee the 5 mandated security guard training courses under 89N, which are the 8-hour pre-assignment, 16-hour on-the-job training course, 8-hour annual in-service, the 47-hour initial armed guard firearms, the 8-hour armed annual for armed guards. And we also have one that's not going 89N. It's the security guard instructor development course.
And how do you oversee them? You can briefly.
We receive the rosters. We will run audits on rosters to see how training is going. There's certain things that we do look for. We also will talk with security guards. We'll receive complaints from security guards and others in relation to the training that's given.
And does your office provide training as well?
Yes, we provide a director orientation session to new school directors.
And can you tell us a little bit about that orientation?
Yes, it's prior to COVID, we would do it a few times a year, usually here at Albany. It was mainly done by my former manager, Tom Canning. And we would bring, anywhere from 15 to 30 new school directors up at a time and provide the director orientation session. It covers the basic operating practices for the school. We go over the regulations. We would do a demonstration. Well, back in the days when we used what they called the bubble sheets, we would talk about those. We would talk about the conduct of the school, what's expected. And post-COVID, we started to do them over the phone individually with schools. And what we found was the ones when you'd have a large group of people in the room, they would tend to last about 5 hours. And then after that, we started doing them individually, and they would last 2 to 2.5 hours, depending, because you didn't get as many questions. And there was also areas that we would not have to go over. Also, we would do an ACADIS demonstration when they were live.
I'll just stop you there. Can you tell us what a CADIS is?
Sorry, ACADIS is the program that we use to replace the bubble sheets. It's the program that we use to, or the schools use to the portal to register completed training with the division. We would do a demonstration of that live once we went through to the, post-COVID and we were doing them on the phone, that we were unable to do that. We did develop a instruction book that went with ACADIS that was pictures with step-by-step instructions that we have found to be rather successful. It's kind of, as I tell people, if you have the book and you go through it, it becomes kind of self-explanatory. It's pretty user-friendly.
And so you have cut out the ACADIS demonstration from the
That's correct. And
director training?
Correct. And if the school, for instance, is not an armed school, we will also, we cut out all the stuff about the arm because it's not relevant to their operation. If we have a school that decides to add arm training in, we will then provide them with that information in a shortened orientation that just focuses on running an armed security guard training school.
Okay. And what are the major topics that you cover in the orientation?
Rules and regulations, some training bulletins in regard to correcting student discrepancies, which happen when there's let's say that there's a date of birth discrepancy and the train does not register correctly at Department of State, therefore the student does not get credit for that training. We talk with the school directors on how they correct that. We also talk about something called the employment scam, which occurs, and it's where someone puts a false ad for a job up and the scam starts from there and they wind up charging people a lot of money for training that is not, that they would then get into like an agreement with a security guard training school to provide that training. And, we advise the school directors of the scam and that they need to vet anybody and that they're always able to contact us. We also go over regulations pertaining to selling certificates, condensing classes where we define what condensing is, and also prohibitions about combining classes.
Can you tell us what you mean by condensing?
Condensing, the rules state that a security guard class, like an 8-hour pre-assignment is supposed to be 8 hours. 16-hour JT is supposed to be 16 hours, 8-hour annual, obviously 8 hours. For the unarmed classes, I do speak to, having been an instructor myself, and actually having many years ago sat through a 8-hour pre-assignment. I speak to some discretion that we do give the schools due to there is a difference between teaching 5 people and 25 people. And I understand that something where you're teaching 5 people, you may get through the material quicker because you don't get the interaction with the students, you don't get as many questions. We define, so I just talk with the school directors and I say, I give you a couple hours of discretion. So if the training comes out to 6.5 hours and you have 5 people, we understand that can happen. Or I do say if they're all coming out like that, we need to add some more material. And if you have any questions on that, feel free to contact me. And because we have a lot of material that, we've worked with the school to, if you will, beef up the training a little bit to make sure that we are meeting that. But again, that's how I look at condensing.
All right. And you also referenced combining. Can you tell us what you mean by that?
Combining is teaching a 8-hour pre-assignment with an annual at the same time. The security guard, 89N of the Security Guard Act, all the topic titles are the same. And as I tell during the orientation, it is a bit of a confusion. It can be confusing. And it's been something that we've dealt with up here, and what I talk with about combining is it cannot be done. They are separate classes. If you look at the actual curriculum under those topic titles, it is different. And I advise them that, we can't combine. And if that does happen, we will be talking with them. That it could lead to disciplinary action, depending, but in my time here at DCJS, I have never suspended pending revocation schools for simply combining classes. A lot of times it's done, almost seems to be done accidentally, where you'll get two rosters in, same date, same time, same instructor, but one will be a pre, one will be an annual. And it's obvious that they needed to be remediated in that.
Right, and do you discuss areas that may lead to revocation?
I do. Selling certificates, getting into a pattern of selling certificates of completion will lead to revocation, as will getting involved and becoming involved with a employment scam agency, also known as, I believe, New York City Department of Consumer Affairs considers them unlicensed employment agencies. Will lead to revocation of the school.
All right, and how do you document the director orientation? That someone took the director orientation?
We have them send us an email, basically stating that they attended it. And prior to the director orientation, we will, and this is how we do it now. Prior to COVID, we had a sign-in sheet and people just sign in on the sign-in sheet. But now we have them send us an email at the conclusion of it. And prior to the orientation, we will email them the materials that we will be going over during the orientation. So the regulations, some of the training bulletins. We also have what we call the program summary, or the cheat sheet as it's called, which is general program information for the school director to reference with any questions. That goes over a lot of different stuff with security guard registration, and it's kind of a frequently asked question.
Okay. At this time, I want to direct your attention to Exhibit 1, which is on pages 10, 11, and 12. Mr. Griffin, can you tell us what those pages are?
The first one is the email I sent to Mr. Cochran prior to the orientation from April 16th, and there you will see the attachments of what we send to them for the orientation, including the ACADAS portal guide that we came up with, which again, as I mentioned, is the step-by-step instructions on how it works with pictures and words. Notification of change form, student advisory notice, and student referral sources. That is the prohibition about getting involved with employment scams. Student resolution procedures is the training bulletin talking about how we rectify a class that did not register correctly, or sorry, the class would register, but usually it's an individual student would not register correctly. The related sections of law where we go over 89N and we talk about how classes can be split up, as well as showing them where it says in the law a person must go through this, because sometimes the school director will be challenged by a security guard that I don't need this. And then we go over the program regulations, and we do not read the regulations step by step, but we will show them the regulations and we will explain what they're saying, and then it's up to the school director. As I tell them, I said, this is the rules of the game, so to speak. and it's in their best interest to read through these, know these, so they can conduct their business accordingly. And those regulations cover training classes, the operation of an approved training school, as well as instructor. And during that is when we do talk about the prohibited, what we call defects in business practices, which are selling certificates of completion, combining classes, and condensing classes.
And on page 11, can you tell us what that is?
This was at my phone conversation with Mr. Cochran on the 19th of 2021, where we talked about the operation of the school and had a conversation about it. This is just him saying that he's received those materials and he received the orientation.
All right, and is that consistent with your practice for confirming that an orientation has been conducted?
Yes.
And on page 12, can you tell us what that is?
This is a notification of change form where John Monaco was made a co-director of Bushido Security Training in October of 2021.
And with respect to these documents in Exhibit 1, aside from redactions, have they been changed or altered in any way from the
No.
originals?
Nope.
And is it part of your practice to maintain these documents?
Yes.
Well, at your office?
Yes, yeah.
And obviously your emails.
Yep.
Did you conduct a training with John Monaco after the change form was filed?
I did not. Mr. Monaco has been in the program for several years, and he had previously gone through a direct orientation.
Did you conduct that
I did not.
direct orientation?
I did not. That was prior to my joining DCJS. So he was.
And Mr. Cochran, what school was he associated with?
Mr. Cochran was the director of Bushido Security Training.
At this time, I would like to submit the documents in Exhibit 1 for the council's consideration. Do you have any objection?
No, I'm not gonna, I want it to be submitted as an exhibit, but there are missing pages from the email chain, because there's more to the email chain other than it was presented in his exhibit. But during my portion, I'll introduce the other pages, so it's okay that that's an exhibit, but I'm gonna have other pages from my exhibit to show the complete email chain.
Thank you. All right. I'm gonna switch a little bit of gears here. Mr. Griffin, can you, want to ask you about the role that investigating complaints, what your role in investigating complaints into alleged improprieties at security guard schools. Can you talk a little bit about how that is approached in your position?
Yes, we will receive a complaint. We will only accept firsthand complaints, people with firsthand knowledge. We will talk with them. We will get what their, I guess, for lack of a better term, their narrative of what happened. We will seek any supporting and corroborating documents that they may have. And we will also ask them to, as much as possible, we will have them email us a statement to get it into writing as to what occurred. From there, we will wait, for, in a situation like this, we'll wait for supporting documents to come from the school. We'll then seek from the school the enrollment forms to show that the person was there. And we will then reach out to some other students in the class to discuss their experience. And
Can you, can you talk about complaints that do not result in investigations? Do you receive those as part of your duties?
most of those majority of our, if you will, quote unquote, complaints come in as a security guard claiming that a school ripped them off, when in fact it was just a data discrepancy and the training did not go over correctly. Ms. Hickok and the administrative assistants handle the bulk of those. And those are handled because once the guard realizes, oh yeah, they did, they suddenly aren't as angry anymore. They just realize it was a data discrepancy. We also receive some complaints about the refund policy and someone feeling that they're owed money back, and we will mediate those to the best of our, to the best of our ability.
So not all complaints lead to an investigation?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And if you know, about how many investigations have you conducted?
At DCJS?
Yeah, at DCJS, related to security guard schools?
I could guesstimate, and this is not a firm number, but a couple dozen, maybe give or take.
Oh. And when you conduct an investigation, what is there a review process?
There is.
And can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So I will gather everything that we can. In regard to it, I will write up a summary memo, and then it goes to my supervisors for their review, because I do not have authority to suspend a school pending revocation unilaterally. It has to go through the chain so they can take a look at it, ask questions, and then I'll come back with a determination whether or not the division will issue a suspension letter.
All right, I want to this time draw your attention to April 2022. Did you receive a complaint about the Bushido Security Guard Training School?
I did.
And do you recall when that complaint came in?
Yes.
And when was that?
I spoke with the complainant at approximately noon, 11:30 or noon,
And
April 14th.
okay. And did you speak with anyone before that?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell us a little about that?
Yes, the complainant's employer had sent her to Bushido to take an annual, and had contacted me about the experience, and I advised the individual. We do not take secondhand complaints of this nature. If the student wished to contact me, they could.
And had you spoken to that individual previously?
Yes.
And what was the nature of that conversation?
That individual had contacted the division prior to that, complaining about the operation of Bushido.
And what did you advise them?
I advised them that the division will take it under consideration, and that we will figure out a course of action to look into it. And
And
thank you.
did you take any action based upon that complaint?
I did not. It was a secondhand complaint. And I received another complaint from another business in the Bronx alleging the same selling of annual certificates that was occurring at Bushido.
All right, and when you receive information like this that isn't firsthand, what do you do with it?
I take it as just more or less intel. We don't, like I said, I don't launch investigations on secondhand complaints because they are coming from, a lot of times it comes from other security guard training schools because a guard that goes to, let's say they go to school A and they are sold a cert, they then go to school B and they're not sold a cert, some of the guards become angry and they will, basically they yell at the school director of school B saying, I can just go to school A and get it, and they leave, and so I just take that as, like I said, just as intel.
All right. And you stated earlier, you spoke with, I think you said a complainant. Do you recall who that was?
That was Ms. Inez Vasquez.
All right. And what did Ms. Vasquez convey to you?
Ms. Vasquez stated that on April 14th, she went to Bushido Security Training for an annual, arriving a little bit before 8 a.m. She paid $60 for an annual, filled out some paperwork after presenting identification, went into an empty classroom to fill out some forms, and then handed the forms in to a receptionist she was then given a folder that contained an 8-hour annual certificate along with some business cards, and that she left approximately a few minutes after 8 a.m.
And did you memorialize this conversation in any way?
I asked Ms. Vasquez to email me a full rundown of what occurred.
And did she do that?
She did.
All right. And did you memorialize it in any other way?
I believe I did do a memo to file, and I also asked Ms. Vasquez, because it was over the phone, I asked her to send me a picture of the alleged certificate that she was sold, as well as in that picture to have her identification, driver's license, and her security guard card.
All right. I'm going to ask you to refer you to Exhibit 2, which is on pages 14, 15, and 16. Can you identify those documents?
I can.
Can you tell us what they are?
Yep. This is the email that was sent to me at 1:02 p.m. With a picture of the training certificate and her driver's license and security guard card.
And these documents, aside from redactions of personal information, have they, are they changed or altered in any way?
No. Well, you will see that it says, and I don't know if this counts or not, but when someone attaches a picture to an email, it's not sized. So in order to resize that picture so you can actually read the email, you forward it to yourself, and you can shrink the picture down. So it will allow the text to be able to be read.
Okay, and did you do that here?
I did. Yeah, I forwarded it to myself and then shrink this giant image.
All right, but with respect to the, what we can see in the picture, that has not been changed other than the redactions?
Correct.
Okay. And are these, is this a record that you keep as part of your job at DCJS?
Yes.
I would like to offer Exhibit 2 for the council's consideration. So Paul, do you have any objection?
Only objection I have is that Ms. Vasquez is not here for me to ask her questions, and a piece of paper that she allegedly wrote. I mean, I know it's hearsay, and I'm not saying that hearsay shouldn't be admitted. I understand hearsay, but if I can't question Ms. Vasquez about what she wrote or ask her anything to refute what she said, then it kind of puts me at a disadvantage because I'm fighting against a piece of paper that can't answer for her. I could ask questions to Mr. Griffin, and maybe he can discern, because he had many conversations with her, what was
Which
on
you
her
will have
mind.
the opportunity to do.
Okay, very good, but I have no objections. You can,
Thank you. Okay. With respect to the conversations with Ms. Vasquez and the conversation, do you recall when those conversations took place on April 14th?
Yes, it took place approximately 11:30 or noon on the 14th over the phone, and then I provided her with my email address and asked her to email me a written statement as to what she had told me.
And with respect to that timing, the class, this, you know what, I'll ask you later. All right, so when you received this information from Ms. Vasquez, what did you do at that point?
At that point, I said thank you and waited to see when the roster would be submitted to make sure that Ms. Vasquez was on the roster.
And did you do that?
I did.
And was the roster submitted?
Yes, on April 19th, 2022, Mr. Cochran submitted an 8-hour annual in-service training roster.
And I'm going to direct your attention to Exhibit 3, which begins on page 18 and goes to page 20. Can you tell us what that is?
That is the roster that was submitted containing 13 attendees from April 14th, 2022. Shows the instruction was provided by John Monaco, submitted April 19th by Matthew Cochran, and it contains Ms. Vasquez's name, and it shows under the event comments that the training was conducted from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
And is this training event record a record accessible by your office at DCJS?
Yes,
Okay.
this is one of
And
the
is
rosters
it,
we send over.
do you review rosters in the regular course of your business?
Yes,
At DCJS? And aside from the redaction of personal ID numbers, is this a fair and accurate representation of how this roster appears on the
Yes.
DCJS record?
yes.
Mr. Archibald, is there any objection? Thank you. Griffin, you mentioned that this record indicates that the training was held from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Yes.
Can you, and that the date was April 14th, 2022, is that correct?
Yes.
And the previously indicated that the time you spoke with Ms. Vasquez was prior to 5 p.m. on April 14th, 2022?
It's approximately noon. I spoke with her for approximately 30 minutes or so.
Did she indicate to you that she was in a training?
No, she did not.
And as part of your training, do you, the orientation for directors, is there any training or counsel on presenting certificates?
Yes, we, at the conclusion of a training class, all students have to walk out with a certificate. And I do tell the directors, do not give the certificates out prior to the end.
And why do you tell them that?
Because you don't know if the student's going to come back. You know, the student may take it and go. So I tell them, do not, never give out a certificate until the end of the training class.
Okay. After reviewing the April 14th, 2022 roster, can you tell us what you did next as part of your investigation?
I emailed Mr. Cochran and asked him for enrollment forms from
And why did you do that?
the enrollment form is a registration form that the students will fill out at the school, and they are supposed to be maintained by the school for a period of 2 years. In addition, they are supposed to supply the student with a copy of the enrollment form, but I asked Mr. Cochran to send me the enrollment forms for the April 14th class and also just the 13th class as well.
And what information did you want from the enrollment forms?
But it gives the student's name, their phone number, it contains the student's signature, the date of the class, type of the class, and then it's also countersigned by a representative of the training school.
And were the enrollment forms provided to you?
They were.
Okay, and what do, I'm going to direct your attention now to Exhibit 4, and that starts on page 22. Oh. And can you tell us what those documents are?
Yeah, it's just an email from Mr. Cochran sending me the enrollment forms as attachments, saying that they were too big to come together, and that's all it
And
is.
these are emails that you made in the course of your business as at DCJS?
Yes.
Okay. And other than the redaction of email addresses, have they been changed or altered in any way?
No.
Is there any objection to?
No objection.
I'm also going to direct you to Exhibit 5, which is on page 26. Can you tell us what that document is?
This is the approved enrollment form from Bushido Security Training, showing Ms. Vasquez an annual for $60, paying cash, and signing it at the bottom here, and it's countersigned by Mr. Cochran, dated 4/14/2022.
And aside from the redaction of personal information, has this form been changed or altered in any way since you received it?
No.
Is there any objection to Exhibit 5?
No.
Thank you. After receiving the enrollment forms and confirming that Ms. Vasquez was on the roster and an enrollment form was provided, what, if anything, did you do at that point?
I then attempted to contact other students in the class to see what their experience was from the class.
And were you able to contact anyone?
Yes, I was able to contact two of the students.
And who did you speak with?
I spoke with a Tony Careth and a a James Newman.
With respect to Mr. Careth, I'm going to direct your attention to Exhibit 6 that appears on page 28 and 29. Actually, and Exhibit 6 goes to page 31. Can you tell us what those documents are?
It's just a summary of the sum and substance. It is not a complete transcript. It's just a summary, sum and substance of what I learned when I spoke with both of them.
And is there anything else included in that exhibit?
It also includes their student enrollment form showing that they were in the class.
And with respect to the student enrollment forms, other than the redactions, have they been changed or altered in any way?
They have not.
Okay. And they appear to be the same as when you received them?
Correct.
And the other documents, you said are a memorializing of the conversations you had?
Yep, just a quick summary of it.
Okay. And with respect to Mr. Careth, can you tell us the conversation you had with him?
I asked Mr. First, I explained who I was, that I was from DCJS. I tell the security guards, because DCJS does not have any regulatory authority over security guards. That is the Department of State's job. So I tell Mr. Kareth and all guards I speak with that we regulate security guard training schools, that it's our job that when we receive a complaint of sales of a certificate, that we're going after the school, not the guard, and that they need to be honest, because if they are not honest, they can go over to Department of State, and where because Department of State does regulate security guards. So I emphasize to them that their honesty is paramount. Because if it does, and as I also explained to them, sales of a certificate is result in a revocation, suspension pending revocation, which means the record will make its way over to the Department of State, and if they're shown to not being honest, the Department of State would have it. So it's in their best interest. As I tell them, don't put a horse in the race. Just be honest. Worst case scenario for you is you're gonna have to go get another annual.
And specifically, what was your conversation with Mr. Kareth?
I advised Mr. Kareth what occurred, that, we had somebody who complained about purchasing a certificate, not receiving full training at Bushido. And I stated that through conversation and then through supporting documentation, we were able to corroborate that. And I asked Mr. Kareth some questions about the class. For instance, I asked him if he was there. He said that he was. I asked him how long the class was. He stated that, he was there for the full class, but it wasn't the full 8 hours. He was unable to really state how long it was, because at that point I asked him, what's your start time, what's your end time? Because again, going back to the condensing thing, I'm just curious what the time is. He was unable to state that. I then asked him to describe the instructor, and he simply stated it was a male, at which point I prompted him the same way I've prompted many other people during interviews, when I was a cop and everything else. I would say, well, okay, we're talking white male, Asian male, other descriptor, African-American male, what do we got? And he stated that it was an African-American male. I asked he was, and Mr. Kareth stated there was a guy there I met who was an African-American. And I asked, because I don't know the ethnicities, we do not collect ethnic data on any instructors or anybody. So I then asked him, I said, was that Matthew Cochran? And Mr. Kareth stated that was the person. And Mr. Griffin advised, I advised him that Mr. Cochran wasn't an instructor, because he was unable to tell me the name. So.
Did he tell you anything else?
I again informed him that his honesty would be the best policy. And we spoke about that. And I asked him again how long the class lasted, and he, at that point, stated he needed to level with me, and stated that he basically got a certificate and did not stay for training.
And why did you continue to ask Mr. Kareth questions about the class?
He was being evasive. He was unable to give me really any information on the class. He just, times and the class had only been like 12 days prior. So.
Right, and based upon your experience and your training, is this consistent with other interviews you've conducted?
Yeah, yes, it's.
And did you speak with anyone else from the class?
Yes, I spoke with James Newman.
And can you tell us in some substance that conversation?
I asked him if he, again, remembered going to the class. He stated he had. And I asked Mr. Newman to describe the instructor. And again, Mr. Newman stated it was a male. I then went through the same prompts. I was like, okay, we're talking a white male, Asian male, other descriptor. And Mr. Newman stated it was an Asian male. I then said to him, according to the submitted roster, that wasn't correct.
And why did you say that?
Because he was very confused and didn't really know. And I honestly didn't really know either, but I put it out there just to say, okay, according to state roster, that's not correct.
What, if anything, did Mr. Newman indicate?
After that, I again reminded him, I said, listen, we target schools, we don't target guards. If you bought this, the time to say so is now. And he then stated that he purchased the certificate, and I asked him some details about it, and he said that he arrived at Bushido early in the morning, paid money for the certificate, filled out the paperwork, received the certificate and left. And I asked him, how long were you there? How long did it take? And he said, quote, not long, pretty quick. And I just told him he would have to go buy another certificate.
At this time, I would like to submit Exhibit 6 for the council's consideration.
Just for the record, I don't object to hearsay, but, you know, Mr. Griffin is being a witness for himself. These are his recollections of the conversation that he had with these people, and it places a premium on having witnesses here for me to question. With only Mr. Griffin's recollection, forgive me if I don't trust it, I would like to speak to the people who he allegedly spoke to and who allegedly gave him this information. It's just an unfair process, but you could put it on the record. I just wanted to note that it's just nonsensical that he writes a note and that's evidence. But I don't object.
Okay.
Put it on
thank
the
you.
record.
That being said, for everyone in attendance, would anyone mind if we take a quick break, please?
Say again?
If we take a quick break?
Sure.
Please.
I thought you said go quicker. I was
Oh,
gonna
no,
agree
no.
to that too.
According to that clock, it's 12:20.
Yeah.
Can we come back at
Yeah, if anyone needs to use the restrooms, they're right out in this hallway here. And directly to your right, if you go out the door, they sell coffee and soda right there. if you want.
Well, how long is this break gonna be?
10 minutes?
10 minutes.
Okay, all right,
We would have been at 12:30.
all right.
No, they're not going to lunch or anything.
Huh?
No, they're not going to lunch or anything.
Okay, no.
Yeah.
You good?
Take it right. Cool.
Ms. Glavin, you can continue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to continue, but before I do, I wanted to just let the record reflect that I spoke with Mr. Archibald during the break regarding the exhibits in the book that we provided to the council, and he has, I will let him do it, obviously, but, you know, subject to his standing objection regarding hearsay, he has said he will not object other than in the ways he already has and how he can do now. So I can, in the interest of expediency, move through the evidence a little bit quicker.
Okay, I don't have an objection to hearsay. Hearsay, of course, in this form is perfectly permissible. My objection is that there are no witnesses here, and my contention is that Mr. Griffin can't be a witness for himself and represent anyone else other than a piece of paper. I have no opportunity to impeach the people who are making comments that got my certification taken and John's certification taken. That's my only exception. That's my only complaint.
No,
But the exhibits, I went through them, they're, you know, they are what they are.
and obviously, Mr. Archibald will have an opportunity to ask questions of Mr. Griffin regarding the exhibits. So, given that, I will proceed. Mr. Griffin, the documents contained in exhibit 6 are the two memos to file are those fair and accurate representations of your conversations with Mr. Carrick and Mr. Newman?
Their summaries, yes.
Okay. All right. Did you have an opportunity to speak with any other individuals from the April 14th, 2022 class?
Yes,
roster?
following that, there was a woman called me, asking questions about the April 14th class. And I don't remember the date. I asked her same questions, unlike the other two witnesses or the other two people I had spoke with. She was, for lack of a better term, she was just Johnny on the spot with the whole thing. 8 to 4, described Mr. Monaco as a white male, which, I later in the course of the audit, had to contact Department of State to clarify Mr. Monaco. And I asked her, I told her the same thing I told the other two, and that, I also informed her, I said, there was now 3 other people in this class that aren't really matching up with your story, this isn't making sense. I informed her again that, I don't go after guards, that we target schools, and that this school is definitely looking like it's, there's some stuff going on as far as certificate sales, and that I asked her, if she would want to reconsider what she was saying. And she said, nope, and I said, okay, but I did not, I honestly, after speaking with the others, I did not find her credible.
And let me just back up. Did you say that you reached out to her or she reached out to you?
She reached out to me.
Okay.
Are we permitted to ask a question?
At the end.
Okay.
And did you memorialize that in any way?
I did not.
Okay. And did you speak with other individuals from the roster from April 14th?
No, I did not. Called some, but left messages, no one called me back.
I'm gonna ask you to look at Exhibit 7 and page 33.
Mhm.
Can you tell us what that is?
Those are notes from, because I did call some people from the April 13th class.
Okay.
We did not have a complaint against that class, but I had called on May 10th, so we're almost a month out from when the class took place. I just called and asked about the class and was told, as you can see here, I asked, what the instructor looked like, what the times were, about how many people were in the class. And when I do ask that, I say, look, I just need an approximate number. I know you didn't take a head count, but just see if it's consistent. And when I contacted, I spoke with these 3 individuals, 8 to 4, 8:30 to 4:30. One of them, said 8 to 2. They were let out a little early. And when I asked them what the instructor looked like, they all said thin white male, older thin white male. And it was no hesitation whatsoever. And it was different from from my experience with speaking with the Mr. Careth and Newman back at the end of April.
And that was for the
April 13th.
The April 13th class, just to be clear. Did there come a time when you spoke with Ms. Vasquez again?
Yes.
And can you tell us about that?
Yes. On May 26th, Becky Hickok let me know that some of the students that were on the April 14th roster were starting to appear on some other Bushido rosters. And I asked her if Ms. Vasquez had appeared on any other rosters, and she said no. I asked Ms. Vasquez if she would contact me.
And how did you ask her?
I emailed Ms. Vasquez requesting that she just give me a call.
And did she do that?
She did.
And what was the nature of your conversation?
I asked her if she would, just contact Bushido about the status of the April 14th class.
And what, if anything, did she tell you?
She stated that she would, but she let me know that just a couple days prior, that someone had contacted her from Bushido offering her a refund for the course because it was, not going through. And then she.
When you say not going through, what do you mean by that?
It had not been approved yet. It had not been sent over to the Department of State yet because of the 3 people we had who stated they purchased the certs. Under law, we can't certify that roster and send it on.
And did she indicate anything else to you?
She said it was the second time that she had been contacted by Bushido, with the first time being in the beginning of May, when someone called to advise her that the class was being audited. And she said that they then went on to tell her what she should state, should New York State call her.
And what was that?
Ms. Vasquez was told to tell the state that she was in the class the whole day and was given a description of the instructor. And then I asked Ms. Vasquez to email a written summary of that conversation. And also I asked her for any phone records she may have showing these phone calls coming in.
And I'm going to direct your attention to pages 37 through 43. And are those, is that the documentation that Ms. Vasquez sent to you?
It is.
All right, and what was included in that documentation?
Good, that documentation was phone records showing a phone call coming into Ms. Vasquez on May 6th. I think it was at 12:35 p.m. from a phone number that is registered to, that we have on file at DCJS as being connected to Mr. Archibald.
All right, and how did you find that phone number?
I looked back at Mr. Archibald was Director of iSpy Training, and I looked back at the application, and it was there showing that that was the phone number. And according to Ms. Vasquez, I did ask her an email to tell, did anybody identify themselves? And she stated that the person on the phone identified themselves as Archie.
Okay, and the application that you just referenced, does that appear on page 44?
It does.
Okay, and that's part of Exhibit 8. What, if anything else, do the emails contain that Ms. Vasquez sent to you?
I asked her, what specifically, to the best of her recollection, do you remember as far as the description that they said to say? And she said that Archie said to say the instructor was a man named John and that he was tall and thin. And she said, that's all I can remember.
And can you just tell us a little bit about the attachment photos that Ms. Vasquez sent?
Yes, there are screenshots from her phone showing the phone calls coming in. One is actually a bill, and the other is one with caller ID showing the phone number that it came from, as well as the time. And again, this is, as I was talking about before, when you send screenshots attached to emails, you can see what happens to the wording if it's shrunk. So again, I had to forward that email to myself to resize those pictures so you could read what she was written, what she wrote.
All right. After speaking with Ms. Vasquez, what, if anything else, did you do at that point with respect to this investigation?
After speaking with Ms. Vasquez, I waited. just to see what else would happen. As I explained to Mr. Cochran during the orientation, I really don't like revocations. I would like to give everyone as much benefit of the doubt as I can. So I wait to see what would happen next.
All right. And did there come a time when you received an additional complaint?
Yes,
All right. And can you tell us about that?
yes, on June 14th, I had received an email from a Miss Crystal De La Rosa that I did not have time to deal with on the 14th, so I flagged it and put it for follow-up the next day.
And what was the nature of the email?
Nature of the email, she was upset she had gone to Bushido, 10 and 8-hour annual training class. She arrived at Bushido, she stated that, like the others, she went into a room, filled out some paperwork, and she got there at about 9 a.m., went into a room, filled out some paperwork, and was out by like 9:40, 9:45, and no training had taken place.
And on page 46 of the book, Exhibit 9 is that the email
Yes.
you're referring to?
Yes.
What did you do upon receipt of this email?
Like I said, I flagged it for follow-up the next
And
day.
did you follow up with Ms.
I did. The
Rosa?
next day, I came into the office, and I also had a voicemail message from Ms. De La Rosa that was left earlier in the day. Unfortunately, I do not know the time. And the message did not mention Bushido by name. It just said that they had gone to a school, they paid him $60, they gave him a cert, and my impression from that was she was concerned that it was a fraudulent school, which we do have problems with in the program. They're not approved schools. They get a certificate template from someplace, and they will sell basically fake certs that never get sent to us, and every now and again we do hear from one of their victims of that scam.
Did there come a time when Ms. De La Rosa provided you with additional documentation?
Yes, I phoned Ms. De La Rosa, and I spoke with her I left a message for her on the 15th, and we spoke on the 16th, where I asked her questions, and I said, first off, I said Bushido is an approved training school, but I would like to hear a little bit more about your experience there, and which she told me. And while she was there, she said that the instructor was named John, and that he was talking with someone sitting next to her about getting a security guard license. She asked, is this, I want an annual, and I need an annual, and she told her it was okay. And at that point, she was there about, John had collected the forms, then she was called out of the room with, I believe, 4 other people, and she was given an annual cert and left.
All right. And did she provide you copies of what she was given?
Yes, I asked her to provide me copies of the certificate. If she was given an enrollment form, copy of that, and any other things that she was provided while at the school.
And are those documents reflected in Exhibit 10 as seen on pages 50, 51, and 52?
They are.
All right. And can you tell us about those documents?
Yeah, one is a certificate of completed training dated June 13th, 2022 for an annual in-service course provided by Bushido and given to Ms. De La Rosa. She also supplied me with a picture of her enrollment form, and I asked her why to take a picture of your enrollment form, and she told me that she had trouble with a previous school at one point, and that she just takes a picture of the enrollment form. And that I noticed that this enrollment form was also dated June 13th, 2022.
Why did that come to your attention?
Because she said that she was there on June 14th, 2022.
And did you discuss that with her?
I did.
And what did she say?
I asked her, I said, well, wait a minute, you're telling me you were there 14th, you got your stuff here dated the 13th. I thought she was confused. I challenged her on it, and she said, nope, I was there on the 14th. And I said, okay, well, I wanted to prove that. So I asked her if she took a picture of the enrollment form with her camera, there should be metadata on there with the date and time the picture was taken. And I asked her if she could to take a look at that metadata and to send me a screenshot of it showing the date and time the picture was taken to prove to me that she was being honest, that she was there on the 14th.
All right, and did she do that?
She did.
All right, and are those pictures reflected in the emails contained in Exhibit 11 on pages 54 through 56?
They are.
All right, and what does that picture indicate?
Picture indicates that the photo was taken Tuesday, June 14th, 2022 at 9:40 a.m.
What did you do after these conversations with Ms. Della Rosa?
I waited for waited for the roster to be submitted.
And did you review the roster? Which rosters did you review?
On June 18th, we received the June 13th, 2022 annual roster, and I saw that it contained Ms. De La Rosa's name as well as 31 other people.
Okay, and did you review, is that the roster contained in Exhibit 12?
It is.
And did you review other rosters?
Yes, there was, on the 21st, there was the June 14th roster was submitted to us. But we do give them up to 7 days to submit the roster. On June 21st, the June 14th roster was submitted to us. That showed a pre-assignment training class had taken place with 29 attendees.
And did Ms. Della Rosa indicate what training she needed?
An annual.
Okay, and on June 14th, 2022, what course was given based upon the roster submitted?
Pre-assignment.
And on June 13th, what course was given based upon the roster submission?
An annual. I had asked Ms. De La Rosa if, when she got the forms, because if you notice in the exhibit, the forms are not countersigned by a school employee. I asked her if the form was predated or if she filled in the date herself, and she stated it was already dated when she received it as June 13th.
Okay. Can you tell us what, if anything, you did after reviewing the roster?
I requested enrollment forms for Mr. Cochran for, I believe it was the 11th, 12th date range that included the 13th and 14th.
Okay, and were those provided?
They were.
All right. And that is detailed in Exhibit 14? We're rolling now.
I know, I'm getting there.
What page is that?
Sorry. On pages 72 through 74.
Yes, those were the enrollment forms sent to me.
With this,
Or Crystal De La Rosa.
and then on page 76, Exhibit 15, 76 through, which one's the big one? 82, that's exhibit 15, pages 77 through 82, I'm sorry, 76 through 82. Can you tell us what those documents are?
Yeah, when I was looking at the forms, I noticed a very striking similarity in handwriting on some for the dates, and on others, different handwriting. So these were, as I looked through them, I just took a sample from them of different handwriting, where it does look like the student would have filled in that date.
All right, and is there any specific prohibition about filling in the dates ahead of time on an enrollment form?
There's no reg against it, about filling in the dates ahead of time, but they should be dated concurrent with the actual date. And the student should be filling in the date as well. As you can see, it's highlighted. We did not do that. This is, student printed name, signature, and then the student dates.
After reviewing the enrollment forms, what, if anything, did you do?
Then I found in Exhibit 16, a batch of them that were, it is the same handwriting, which.
When you say the same handwriting, can you tell me what you mean by that?
The dates appear to be all the same handwriting, 6/13/2022. So these are the ones that, like Ms. De La Rosa said, the date on hers was pre-filled.
And what, if anything, did you do with that information?
I just made a note of it. And then I looked back at the pictures that Ms. De La Rosa had sent in and noticed that the picture of her student enrollment form was not countersigned or dated yet by anybody in the school, which is Exhibit 17. So there's a picture of the student enrollment form, picture of the date and time that was taken, and then there's the enrollment form for her that was submitted, showing that the handwritings are strikingly similar.
And did you memorialize your conversation with Ms. De La Rosa?
I did, and
does that appear on page 96?
it does.
Exhibit 18?
It does.
And after you memorialized that conversation, what, if anything, did you do with respect to the investigation?
I just looked at the enrollment forms for the June 11th class just to see if I could find, see if that repeated itself.
What did you observe about those enrollment forms?
I found that it repeated itself on the June 11th, and I took a sample of ones where the handwriting appears to be different, and a sample of enrollment forms where it's, again, like the 13th, and you'll actually see just, the way the 2s are done, the 6, how that looked, and notice that there was, again, a similarity.
The enrollment forms documented in Exhibit 19, that would be page 99 through 106. Why are those enrollment forms grouped together?
Those are ones where you can see the handwriting is different.
And the enrollment forms in Exhibit 20, that's page 108 through 115. What, if anything, is similar about those forms?
The handwriting on the dates is the same, or appears to be the same.
Did you do any further analysis of the enrollment forms?
I did not.
what did you do at this point?
At this point, I, again, kind of waited to see what else may come in. I also, at this point in time, I was the only person, I had no staff. It was just myself and one other staff member. So it was a severe staffing shortage within the unit. So I was wearing multiple hats. From both doing administrative assistant work, assisting with registration of records, approving applications, reviewing renewal applications, trying to do, complaints and all that. So I kind of walked away from it for a little bit just to.
And did there come a time when you spoke with any other individuals who had attended or who had appeared on enrollment forms?
Yes.
And can you tell us about that?
Yes, I was out of the office for a little bit, and then when I came back, I spoke with Andrew Myrie, who appeared on the June 13th roster, and I asked him, I said, same questions, what were the times, what the instructor looked like, and about how many people were in that class with you.
Did he respond to you?
He did. He stated that the times were about 8 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. There were approximately 10 students in the class, and he was inquiring, some issues with the class. Was there an issue? What's the problem? And I had stated that the submitted roster reports 32 students were in the class. And Mr. Myrie responded, quote, "No way. There were 32 students in that class with him," but reiterated he was there and attended the training. Mr. Myrie, he described the instructor as a white, Caucasian, as he put it, male. And looking at the June 13th roster that was submitted, it shows Gene Johnson as the instructor. I then looked at division records to see, because we do ask again for gender on instructor applications, because I didn't know if, Jean would be pronounced Jean in French, so which sounds a lot like John, so I looked and I saw that Jean Johnson identifies as a female, and then, again, not knowing what anyone really looks like, I then did contact Department of State. If we have reason that we can articulate, they will share other information with us. And I was advised by the Department of State that Jean Johnson reported themselves as an African-American female.
And did you review the enrollment roster, or the roster for the June 13th,
I did.
2022 class?
I did.
And does it indicate who the instructor was?
It says Jean Johnson.
Okay.
Who was a registered instructor with Bushido.
After speaking with Mr. Myrie, did you speak with anyone else?
I did. I spoke with Emmanuel Mensa on September the 7th, and asked Mr. Mensa again about the training, and asked if,
And what did Mr. Mensa indicate to you?
He indicated that he was there and that he had attended that training. I asked him if he could estimate the number of students that were in the class. He stated there was 11 or 12 students in the class, and the instructor was described as a white male with a beard. And again, going back, the roster reported 32 students in that class, with Jean Johnson, who at this point I learned was an African-American female, was the instructor.
At this point, what, if anything, did you do?
At this point, I decided that I needed to complete a summary memo and put this forth
And did you
to
do
my
that?
bosses. I did.
All right, and was it presented to your bosses?
It was.
All right, and did you, in your memo, did you provide a recommendation?
Looking at everything that we had learned, or I'm sorry, that I, learned from talking with these various people, I saw a pattern of non-compliance with regulations at Bushido. And I recommended that they be suspended pending revocation and then put that up through for review.
And were those recommendations accepted?
After review, they were.
And then what was the next step in the process?
The next step in the process, I was instructed to draft suspension pending revocation emails for Mr. Cochran, who, just as the director of Bushido, to suspend that school pending revocation. Mr. Monaco, as he was the co-director of that school, and under the reg is also responsible for the administration of that school, and also as the instructor who had been identified by the people who, or had appeared on the rosters as the instructor for the courses where we had some folks saying they bought certificates. And I lastly wrote a suspension pending revocation letter for Mr. Archibald for basically obstruction is the way that the division looked at it. Calling the students and saying that they're under audit is fine, but having to advise them what to say was looked at as questionable and as an obstruction, because why would you have to do that?
Are those email letters depicted in Exhibit 24 on pages 129, 130, and 131?
They are.
And 132?
They are.
133? All right. I think those are all the questions I have at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Archibald, did you have any questions of Mr. Griffin?
Yes, I do. I have a few. Mr. Griffin, you mentioned that prior to being in your position of associate trainer, technician, you had another job. What job was that?
I was a senior training technician.
No, but prior to that position.
I was a police officer.
And where were you a police officer?
New York State University Police at New Paltz, then Oswego, then Albany.
Is that like a campus, college campus?
It is.
Okay. And do they have a pension? I'm just curious, when a person's a police officer, like I'm a retired correction officer, we have retired police personnel here. Do they get a pension after 25 years? Isn't there a 25-year pension for that job?
I would object to the question. I don't know how it's relevant to the.
It's relevant because Mr. Griffin left service of SUNY because he touts it as his reason for his proficiency. He was an investigator on the campus, on the SUNY campus. So he touts that in an affidavit that you'll see, which is part of my exhibit, as the reason why he knows so much and he knows why to conduct an investigation. And what I'm asking everybody here on the council is to suspend the robotic answers, because he had a lot of time to compile this stuff, a lot of time. At the time I was notified, from the time I was notified, I was suspended and revoked, the only one out of the three of us. I was given no time to prepare my defense, 0 time.
May I? I would like to object. If you have questions for Mr. Griffin, you should ask them. And
Okay.
I believe you'll have time to.
The relevance
to make
is,
the case.
okay.
I do not believe his pension is relevant to his training and
I'm just-
preparation as a police officer.
I'm curious, okay, but it speaks to his character. Why would you leave a police job and take another job? Most people,
That's
I'd be more than happy to
That's a
answer
different
that.
question.
I'd be more than
So
happy
just
to
for
answer that.
clarification,
just for clarification, yeah.
right. the hearing is with respect to the information that has been presented. And so let's focus on the training school, the instructors, not to say that character isn't an issue, but as it relates to Mr. Griffin's pension, that,
No, I'm not asking him about his pension. I'm asking why he left the job of police officer. Because there was an incident that occurred that I believe caused him to leave his job as police officer and brought him to, that's my belief. And I'm
Madam
going
Chair,
to
if you
present
could
that evidence.
direct Mr. Archibald to ask that question, as opposed to a pension-related question. I
because
think it
you
would
did,
be
you
more
did say pension.
relevant.
Yeah, I did.
So,
Because I wanted to just be clear that the campus job came with a pension. And why would he leave a pension job to switch if it wasn't an issue with the job? In other words, I did 21 years of corrections. He did 25 years with corrections. He's a retired state officer. I don't know how many years he
Again,
did.
Madam Chair, this is.
Right.
Okay,
Mr.
listen,
Archibald has
I'll move
time.
on. It's no problem. I'll move on.
I think there's a relevant question there.
Yeah.
I just think.
I'll move on.
if
Again,
you have a very specific question as it applies to this case, this situation, then ask your specific question. Let's not
okay.
go around.
Specifically, prior to being a campus police officer, did you have another police job for 2 years?
I was a part-time sheriff's deputy from like
Okay.
1992.
So the answer to that's yes, right? And
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
okay, yes. And then you went from being a sheriff's deputy to a SUNY police officer to this job,
Yes.
correct?
Yes,
Okay, that's all on that.
and they're all under the same pension system, sir. We did not have
Okay.
police and fire.
Okay, so you're eligible for retirement after 25 years then?
No, I am not, sir.
Oh, okay,
I'm not. SUNY was under ERS at the time, sir.
okay,
After my departure, they did get into police and fire, but, so for me, it was in the same pension system as a,
it just struck me as an odd it struck me as an odd,
and Mr. Archibald, I'll just tell you, the reason I left is because I had children very late in life, and I wanted to be able to spend more time with my children, and because it did not affect my pension, I was able to go to a more routine job. There was
Okay.
I was not forced out. I was actually
okay.
asked to stay if I could.
Okay, no, because I read an article where you were questioned about
My
securing a
former-
firearm for a colleague.
My former partner, the drug dealer?
Yes,
Yes,
at your home. And as an investigator, under no circumstances, or you're a firearms trainer, right?
Mhm.
You had an arsenal on campus, correct? Yes?
correct.
Okay. But you were questioned for taking her firearm and putting it in your residence. Yes?
Who was I questioned by, sir?
Mr. Archibald, just for clarification, you mentioned when you went down this road with respect to Mr. Griffin's character, you mentioned an affidavit. Is the affidavit included in this?
No, because, no, what happened is I've asked for discovery from DCJS since January.
Okay.
Madam Chair, may I just clarify that up until this morning, Mr. Rayner was the attorney for these parties, is my understanding, and we communicated through him. This is not a process that has formal discovery, as you know, and materials were provided, as Mr. Archibald said, on Friday for the hearing that are the same as what is included in the book.
But we requested discovery in January and February. We were given discovery Friday, not even at close of business on Friday. We were given discovery. So I had to spend,
Again, there is no discovery in this proceeding.
okay, that's a technical answer. The reality is we were entitled to know the information you had against us.
You're right.
Okay. please continue with your questions, but with respect to discovery, we have noted your concern, but do understand that you say it's a technicality. This is not a court of law. So the proceedings are very different.
Yeah, but the proceedings still have to be fair.
Understood, it's noted.
And giving someone 135 documents at close of business on Friday is an act of contempt for the
Madam-
person
Madam
that's.
Chair.
So if you're making a statement, there will be a time where you can make your
Okay,
statement.
all right.
Now is the time where you can ask Mr. Griffin the questions
Okay.
in relation to
No problem.
what his statements and what has been.
No problem. No problem. Mr. Griffin, Mr. Monaco, when you look at his suspension letter and you look at the affidavit, which I will provide you with a copy of the affidavit, why was Mr. Monaco suspended?
He was suspended he was the instructor on record for the classes. He was identified by some of the people that were in those classes. They said it was, John, and there was a 6029, which is the instructor regs. It states that the instructor, as well as the school director, is equally responsible for the proper conduct of the class.
Okay, but if you have a copy of the suspension letter, it says he was suspended because there were certificates sold.
Correct.
Did John Monaco sell certificates? Is that your testimony?
That is, my testimony is that Bushido, the training school was, and he was a co-director of the Bushido training school.
Okay, but
And-
you still have to have evidence that John Monaco was part of the process of selling certificates. So what? His name is on the sheet. Did John Monaco submit the classes of the classes that will identify where people allegedly purchased certificate? Is his name on the roster sheets?
As the instructor.
Did he?
but
Did
He
he?
did not submit them, no, sir.
No, okay. Does Mr. Monaco have a code to submit classes?
I don't know, sir. I don't believe he had portal access. I don't know. Usually we do give co-directors portal access, but
He does have portal access.
he does?
He does have portal access.
So then he would have been, if he had submitted those rosters, it would have come under his name, not Mr. Cochran's.
But what I'm asking you is, did he submit his name under portal access for the classes in question?
No, he did not.
Okay. The certificates that were allegedly sold, does John Monaco's name appear on those certificates?
They do not.
Okay. All the people that you interviewed, did anyone tell you that John Monaco gave them a receipt for $60?
No,
Did anyone tell you that John Monaco said to them, you do not have to sit in the class?
no,
Did anyone claim that John Monaco told them that they could leave early?
no,
Did anyone at any time identify John Monaco as part of any scheme to sell a certification?
no.
But, because we need to put this in focus. The reality is he's here because he was accused of being part of a process where certificates were sold.
Is that a question?
Part of the problem, Mr. Griffin, is that the school is accused of selling certificates, yes?
Yes,
Did you present any evidence that John Monaco was part of that process?
he's the co-director of the school, and therefore he's part and parcel to the school. For the regs, sir. I mean, he's
So,
co-director of the school.
okay, so because his name appears as the co-director. Now, I'm not saying he's not responsible. What I'm saying is, does that mean, because his name is there, that he sold the tip certificates in question?
It would not.
It just means that he's there as the co-director.
He is the co-director and he is the instructor on those rosters on which there were some questions.
Okay, and when a person submits a roster sheet, does the instructor on the roster sheet have to provide any unique identification to prove that it is them that's the instructor for that class? In other words, is there a signature process for instructors to co-sign, I did this class? Huh?
Certifies the.
Yes, to certify the class.
Not at that time, sir.
Okay, I've seen you've changed the forms, but prior to changing the form, has John Monaco's signature appeared on a receipt, a certification, a enrollment form, or any form related to any of the classes that you said the certificates were sold?
No.
So if in fact a certificate was sold and John Monaco did not sign any certification, did not sign any enrollment form, did not submit any enrollment form, is it possible that he didn't have knowledge of what may have occurred? Isn't that possible?
That would be possible, sir.
Because, Mr. Monaco, do you know what John's role is with Bushido, other than his position with Bushido?
Instructor and co-director.
And co-director. And do you know why Mr. Monaco came on as co-director?
I do not.
Okay. Matthew Cochran, Mr. Cochran, do you know Matthew Cochran's background?
No, I do not.
You did do orientation with Mr. Cochran, correct?
Correct.
And you scheduled for how long the orientation?
Because of the one-on-one, it was probably about 2 hours.
So what you're saying is the smaller the class, the less time you need to spend. Is that it's more efficient because you have less people?
For an orientation, yes.
Okay, so when it's orientation, if you have fewer people, it's more efficient.
It is.
And that's universal. You just have a person, if fewer people, the easier it is for them to understand.
We can tailor the orientation, yes. So and there's also fewer questions and you're a one-on-one conversation.
Okay. Mr. Cochran, prior to applying as Director of Security, do you know if he has a law enforcement background?
I do not.
Okay.
I remember speaking with him during the orientation, just a little, how you doing, get to know you. And I believe he worked in the security field in some capacity, from what I recollect.
You recollect wrong. He never worked in the security capacity.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, do you know how long he was a registered security guard?
I do not.
Do you know if he's ever had a security job, held a security position?
We would have no way of knowing that, sir.
Okay. But you said you had small talk with him and you talked about his background and you incorrectly remembered that he had done some type of security.
Yes.
That's what you just said, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Matthew Cochran has zero experience in the security guard industry.
Is this the question?
Okay. Question. Some people on this council are retired police, investigators, and if you were giving them a class and you were giving a person that had no experience the same class, would it be reasonable to think that that person may need more direction than a person who spent 25 years in the security industry?
They would get the same class because they don't, it's not about the security industry, it's about running a security school.
Okay, that's fine. But you think the level of understanding of a person who's been within the security industry and the person who comes out of the banking industry, their understanding of the security materials will be the same? That's what you're saying?
I'm saying that the rules that basically state don't sell certificates, and that the banking industry is also filled with regulations.
So there is zero advantage to having some type of security experience when you come into the security industry.
As an instructor, there's obviously some advantage having, a background in it, but as a school director, it's a regulation.
Point of order, just for clarification, did you mention when you're describing the orientation to us, that the orientation was largely around operational things respective to schools and not necessarily, you did not mention anything about the security industry, is that correct?
It's correct. It's just about the operating of the school.
Okay. Here's the point. Even though it's operational, when you go from one industry to another industry,
Is this a question?
it will be a question.
Can we
It will be
answer
a
the
question. So when you function as a security officer, a police officer, the organizational skills of a police officer, an investigator, a security guard won't help you understand any material better in the orientation for school director?
I don't quite understand what you're asking.
What I'm asking is, if you've never had a business before, if you've never organized a schedule before, if you've never had any training within a certain business sector, the skill set that you may have as a former police officer, a former instructor, a former business owner may be beneficial when you take a class in orientation to run an organization. What I'm saying is, do you not think that sometimes the life skills in certain professions will prepare you better to work as a security director?
I would have to disagree with you, sir. I don't. We've had other people who've come in with no security background, and they've tended to understand the the regulatory needs just as well as anybody else.
Okay.
Are you suggesting
the
that
banking-
Mr. Cochran was not qualified to be a school director, even though he
I'm-
had submitted
no,
paperwork to that effect?
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying that there are things that I'm saying that life skills are transferable. And I'm suggesting that certain life skills are more transferable to being a school director than other. Mr. Cochran comes from, he worked in banking. Let me leave it at
But
that.
just.
Sarah, I would have to object to this. I feel like Mr. Archibald is testifying. I believe he's made his point about, I think he just told us what his point was to that line of questioning. I think Mr. Griffin has answered, and I think it would be appropriate for us to move on to further questions.
Okay.
And just so we're all on the same page, the state has the regulations that are clearly outlined. Anyone who submits an application under those regulations and signs such application is attesting.
Yeah,
that
he's responsible for it.
Okay, so then let's not.
I'm going to leave that alone.
Okay, so let's move forward.
I'm with you. I'm going to leave it alone. I disagree.
Let's move forward.
Okay. Because what's on paper and what's reality, two different things.
Nonetheless, he signed the paper, yes or no?
Mr. Griffin, was I ever listed, did I have any relationship with Bushido?
You were on as an instructor on their roster for approximately 5 months or so.
And during those 5 months, how many classes did I teach?
I believe it was about a dozen.
It was 11 to be exact. How many classes were conducted during that period of time that I was listed as an active instructor with Bushido?
I would have to refer, I'm
111. From the time Bushido opened to the time Bushido closed, do you know how many classes they conducted in that period of time?
not off the top of my head, sir.
Approximately 468. If you do,
Madam Chair, may I just, I don't think it's appropriate for Mr. Archibald to answer the questions that Mr. Griffin.
he answered them,
He
and
he can testify to that when he went in, if he chooses to testify, in the hearing related to his allegations, and that's not this hearing.
Okay,
So
that's
just for
fine.
clarification,
That's
if you're
fine.
going to ask a question and move on. You
I got
cannot
you.
present a response as testimony.
Supposed to be my hearing.
Okay. John said it's supposed to be his hearing. Okay. In respect to John Monaco, do you have any proof, any witness, any statement that suggested that if security certificates were sold, that John Monaco was part of it?
I do not.
And is it possible, because when you look at your witness statements, and from beginning to end, other than the people who identify John Monaco as being the trainer, did anybody say that John Monaco did anything that was a violation of the state's security training rules?
Well, Ms. De La Rosa, who was there on the 14th, did state that she asked Mr. Monaco and stated, I'm here for an annual, and this, that you're talking to this person over here about getting a security guard license. And Mr. Monaco stated to her it was per Ms. De La Rosa that it was okay. And then a few minutes later, Ms. De La Rosa is pulled out of the class and is called out of the class.
Pulled, did John, did she say Mr. Monaco or John?
She said John.
Did you ask her, or did she say how the person she spoke to, what they looked like? Did she describe that person?
Just, I believe, if you allow me to go back and, because we are talking quite a while ago. She just says the instructor, John, collected the forms.
She doesn't give a description.
No.
Okay. Is it possible she was speaking to someone else other than John? Is it possible she was in error in saying John, or maybe she heard the name John somewhere else?
He stated that she asked the instructor for confirmation. Mr. Monaco was the instructor. His first name is John.
At some part of her statement, does it say she was confused also?
Says that she was confused because she was there for an annual and there was talk
Okay,
of a
but she
pre-assignment.
did generally express a state of confusion.
Is that a statement or a question?
It's a question. He understands the question. Because
If he understands, we can.
he
move
understands the
forward.
question.
We can move it forward.
Her confusion centered around the type of class it was, not who the instructor was.
And at no time she gave a description of the instructor.
Just said instructor John.
Is there any reason why you didn't ask her to describe the instructors? Any reason? Because in most of your statements from people, one of the things that you keyed in on was, because when people told you that they were given a description or something about description, you always ask them, what is that description? So I'm just curious, in this instance, did you not think of to ask the instructor that she thought was the instructor, what that person looked like?
I did not, simply because it was John Monaco came in on the, I did not.
Do you know for a fact John Monaco was there on that day, or do you simply know that John Monaco's name was on the roster sheet of being the instructor for that day?
I simply know that John Monaco's name was on the roster sheet as being listed as the
So
instructor.
you cannot say that John Monaco definitively is the person that she spoke to?
Correct. She spoke with the instructor named John, and John Monaco's name showed.
She
up
spoke
as the
to a
instructor.
person she believed to be the instructor, but you cannot definitively say that she spoke to John Monaco.
Is that a question?
Yes, he understands.
No.
That is a
You
question.
can't tell me what he understands.
He answered it. I'm
Okay,
just
so
asking
let's
it
move
again
on.
for.
You don't need to ask again.
Okay. So your answer is no, correct?
To the question, can she definitively state it was?
Can you definitively state that even though John Monaco's name was on the roster sheet, that this individual spoke to John Monaco?
I cannot.
Okay. Is it possible that she spoke to someone else?
Another instructor named John. I don't know what other instructors named John.
Is it
there.
possible she was in error of who she thought the instructor was?
Is there someone else at Bushido who's collecting forms and walking around while people are filling out
Yes.
forms and answering questions?
Yes, it's called support staff.
Or any support staff named John?
I'm gonna stop you. You don't get to ask the
Sorry.
questions.
Sorry. I just,
So that's a
my
good question.
apologies.
That's a good question. That's a good question. But yeah. Okay, let me ask you this question. Do you know that there is support staff at Bushido that collects forms, and that the instructor's job is to just instruct?
I do not.
Did you know that John Monaco's position never included any administrative tasks?
I did not.
Do you know the reason why John Monaco is not named in any part of any testimonial of any witness that you have as doing anything with them is because John does not handle any administrative tasks?
Is that a question?
Yes, I started off with if. Do you?
No.
I started off with do you? Yeah, that's a question. Do you know that John Monaco does not do administration?
You already, I think that was asked and answered.
I don't remember his answer. Can you?
From what you're telling me, John Monaco does not do administration.
Okay. Do you know anything about John Monaco?
I would object to this question. It's not specific enough.
How long has John Monaco been an instructor?
It predates my time at DCJS.
Okay, and your time at DCJS is how long?
8 years.
If I told you John Monaco's been an instructor at DCJS certified for over 20 years, would you be surprised?
No.
During your 8 years with DCJS, have you ever received a single complaint or allegation with the name John Monaco?
No.
Prior to this allegation here, has John Monaco ever been a problem to DCJS where the radar was up looking for John Monaco?
No.
John Monaco, during the time that John Monaco has been an instructor, have you had opportunities to communicate with John Monaco?
I believe we've communicated once or twice over email.
During your 8 years, only once or twice? You only remember once or twice?
Sir, I communicate with, we have 900 directors in this program, sir, I don't know how to.
Okay,
I
so you
know how
don't
to
remember.
answer.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Would you be surprised if I told you that you have communicated with John Monaco many times?
That I personally have?
Yes, you personally.
Yes, I don't recall.
You remember your previous supervisor?
Yes,
You remember his name?
yes.
Would you be surprised to know that in some point of Mr. Canning's career, that all communications for outside training was deferred to you?
What do you?
Do you know about outside training?
If you're going, okay, is this where we allow a school, if you have a contract
Correct.
at a particular location that you're gonna use once, maybe twice,
Correct.
that contract, you just email us, name, address, and all that, and we'll take a look at it.
Or ongoing?
Not ongoing. Ongoing, no, not ongoing, sir. If it's being used, and this is, I was explained to Mr. Cochran as well during the orientation, if it's a place you're gonna go to, if it's gonna be once, twice a year, whatever, but if it's gonna be something where we're asking now every couple, 3 weeks to go there, that I have them do a full training site, just like I would any other school.
Right. We don't disagree on that because we don't disagree on that. It sounds like we disagree, but we don't. In other words, would you be surprised to know that there are places that Mr. Monaco taught on a regular basis? How the space was authorized is anyone's guess. But he had to communicate with you on numerous occasions to get authorization to do outside training. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, yeah, sir, I'm sure he does. I get a number of those. That's not anything that's gonna really pop up on my radar as a,
Do you ever remember denying him a request to do outside training based on not being credentialed or the place not being credentialed or suitable for training?
Mr. Monaco, because I remember Mr. Cochran asking for Greyston Foundation quite a bit, where I finally asked him that every 2-3 weeks, and I said, hey,
Yes.
we gotta dispense with these emails, just get the place authorized.
Yes.
And Mr. Cochran failed, and I did deny him once. I said, look, that's it, because I've already asked you once. But I unless Mr. Monaco is operating on Mr. Cochran's signatory on those requests.
No, the conversations you had with Mr. Cochran was Mr. Cochran. The conversation you had with Mr. Monaco was Mr. Monaco. That's not a bone of contention at all.
Okay, all right. Then I cannot remember. I don't remember really communicating that much with Mr. Monaco on these outside training requests, but if you say I did, and do I remember denying one? I don't know.
Do you remember being introduced by Tom Canning to John Monaco?
I do not.
Okay. Do you remember you being introduced to me by Tom Canning?
I do not.
Okay.
Sir, I don't, like I said, we have 800, 900 people. I do not.
Do you know why Tom Canning would introduce us to you?
No,
Would it be surprising to, you knew Tom Canning, obviously.
yes,
You considered him an efficient manager?
I object to that question. Not sure it's relevant.
I consider him to be my supervisor, sir.
Okay, I understand. Okay, I'll move on from that. On the suspension letter for John Monaco, if you give me a second to pull it out. His suspension letter is identical, other than the name, the spelling of the names, to Matthew Cochran. Do you believe that their behavior, which has resulted in this hearing for Bushido and John Monaco, is the same behavior? So the complaints are exactly the same, there's nothing different?
Mr., a lot of the, well, for Mr. Monaco, we did add the instructor regs. As far as the rest of it, as a co-director of the school, you're still the co-director of the school, and you're part and parcel to the conduct of that school. Under
Okay,
regs.
but as the co-director, and it's fine if you don't remember, did John Monaco ever submit a roster sheet?
I don't review those, so I wouldn't know that. I don't personally review the rosters. That's done
Okay,
by-
but you did review rosters and submit into evidence roster sheets that you said were submitted by the director.
Correct,
Yes.
correct.
And you had to review those roster sheets, correct?
The roster sheets that were submitted in evidence, yes, I
And all the rosters that were submitted in evidence, I'm assuming you did review them?
Is that a question?
Yes.
That's not a question.
All of the roster sheet that you submitted in evidence, did you review all of those roster sheets?
I didn't, okay, when they come in, they're reviewed for, I did not review those for approval.
No, I'm not talking about in general. All the roster sheets that you submitted in evidence today,
Okay,
did you not review all those roster sheets that you submitted in as evidence today?
yes, well, I looked at them, yes, to make sure that the dates matched.
Reviewed
up.
them, looked at them,
Yeah.
same difference, yes?
Yes, yes.
Did John Monaco submit any of those roster sheets?
He did not, Matthew Cochran did.
Okay. Is it humanly possible that a roster sheet is submitted without any knowledge of John Monaco?
Yes,
Is there, well, you answered the question, so that's fine. When did John Monaco do his orientation?
I don't know, so that would have been with Mr. Canning or Mr. Flynn prior, if he's been in the program for that long, it was prior to my coming here.
How long is?
I've been in the program, I believe, since 2001.
Hold on, is this testimony or is this questioning?
It's questioning.
Okay.
Okay. So you don't know when he did orientation?
I do not, sir.
And did you do orientation with Mr. Monaco?
I did not.
So if Mr. Monaco never did orientation ever prior to you coming to your position and being responsible for orientation, and you admittedly did not do orientation with Mr. Monaco, would it be fair to judge him or make him responsible for the materials in the orientation that he never received?
There is a training memo that went, I believe, in 2010 that required all directors and co-directors to attend orientation. And Mr. Monaco would have been put through orientation. Unfortunately, our division records are incomplete going back that far. So it is my belief that Mr. Monaco attended an orientation session.
Because there's a memo out, you believe that he attended orientation? Or do you have any evidence that Mr. Monaco attended orientation?
I was unable to locate any sign-in sheets or anything with him on it.
Are you aware that I put in a FOIL request for all the records regarding orientation?
I did, I am, yes.
Okay. And did you get a chance to review those records?
I located as many as I could. I didn't read
Okay.
through each and every one of them, but.
Okay, but
I
the
was
ones you
fulfilling a
reviewed,
FOIL
did you see John Monaco's name on there?
I didn't really review them for names. I just.
Okay, but the question is, did you see John Monaco? No matter what you were reviewing it for, do you recall seeing John Monaco's on the sign-in sheet of any of the orientations?
I don't remember seeing really anybody's names because I didn't really even look at the names.
Okay, but we're not talking about anybody, specifically John Monaco.
No, sir, I did not.
So you can't say for certainty that John Monaco ever received orientation materials?
I guess not, sir.
Okay, you guess not or no?
I cannot say with certainty that he would have received them.
Okay. If you gave him the orientation, would you have given him the orientation materials?
Yes,
But you did not.
I did not give him orientation.
Okay. Can we take a 2-minute break?
You
Just,
can take a 10-minute break. The time is now, according to that clock, 1:50. We'll stop for 10 minutes. We'll pause the recording and we'll return at 2 o'clock.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, thanks. Mr. Archibald, you can continue.
Yes, Mr. Griffin, do you remember why Mr. Monaco was put on as the co-director of Bushido?
I don't, I just received a form that said add John Monaco as co-director of Bushido.
Do you remember the conversation that preceded receiving the form? If you don't remember, that's fine.
Sir, I don't remember. It was a very, it was a one-man
That's
operation
fine.
at this point.
Did Bushido conduct any outside training, to your knowledge?
They did.
Do you remember who the sole instructor was for outside training for Bushido?
I do not.
Would you be surprised to know that the only person who conducted outside training was John Monaco?
I would take your word for it, if that's what you're saying.
Okay, so you don't remember the conversation that preceded the submission of the co-directors?
I believe Mr. Griffin's already answered that
I don't,
question.
sir.
Okay.
I get a lot of phone calls. You gotta,
I am not unsympathetic to the number of phone calls that
yeah.
you field during the course of the day. Do you ever remember giving Mr. Monaco counsel?
No. I'm sorry, I don't.
Would you be surprised to know that sometimes, within the context of Bushido, but even before Bushido, you are contacted for counsel before they make a move? Before Mr. Monaco made a move, he would.
Yes, I do remember, and I cannot say it was Mr. Monaco, but globally speaking, in my position, I do get calls not only from just Bushido or Mr. Monaco, from a number of schools who are seeking counsel on conducting training at another location. It's a pretty common thing that I do, and I apologize if my memory fails me that I don't remember. And I always say, if it's a one-shot deal, if it's a professional location, you email us just like we've always done. And I say, go for it and email it up to me. And then I probably forget about that conversation because I got 3 more to have in the next 5 minutes.
Understood. Would you be surprised to know that he became assistant director at your suggestion? Let me ask a follow-up question so you understand this is not a trap question.
Okay.
Do sometimes you make a suggestion that increases the efficiency of a school?
Yes.
Would it surprise you to know that John Monaco, at your suggestion, became assistant director because it increased the efficiency of outside training?
It would not surprise me. It's something I would probably have.
But you don't remember that conversation?
Sir, we're talking October 2021. I have.
Okay.
I mean, as you said, you're sympathetic to how busy our unit is, and we are way understaffed, and I will gladly testify to the fact we are way understaffed.
Okay. Was John Monaco's certification revoked?
It was suspended pending revocation.
Was the school's...
Well,
Go ahead, I'm listening, you're answering the question.
The Office of Public Safety, myself included, did not receive the request for a hearing.
No, but that's not what I'm asking you.
I'm
just asking about,
I'm going to get, if you would, sir, just allow me to explain this, and I think we might be able to, for the sake of efficiency, get there. The Office of Public Safety, myself, Ms. Sullivan, Mr. Murray, were not made aware that a request for a hearing had been made. There were, for the regs, if the request for a hearing is not made within 15 days, it automatically moves to a revocation. I was then advised when that 15 days was up to draft the revocation letters. I sent one to you and it was received. I sent one to Mr. Monaco and it was returned. It was forwarded to an address in Virginia and then returned to us here. And then the one I had sent to Mr. Cochran at Bushido was also returned to us here, to my recollection. We then learned that a request for a hearing had been made. So I left it as a suspension pending revocation. The fact that yours came to you was you happened to be there and signed for it. But it was, our office, and I was never made aware that you guys had requested a hearing in October.
Okay, but that's not my line of questioning right now. I just wanted to know, was his license ever revoked?
Clarify.
Was his certification? I'm sorry, certification.
He did not receive the letter. So
And Bushido, the letter of revocation went where?
It would have gone to the Bushido address.
The letter of suspension, where did you send the letter of suspension for John and Bushido?
To the Bushido address.
So why didn't you send a letter of revocation to the Bushido address for John and Bushido?
Because I figured that, and I obviously figured erroneously, in our database, we have the home addresses, just like we had your home address to send yours. So I sent it to Mr. Monaco, thinking, well, they're not
When
going
you initially suspended myself, John, and Bushido, why didn't you, if I was listed as an instructor for Bushido, why didn't you send my suspension letter to Bushido?
Because you were removed as an instructor from Bushido on May 5th, 2022. So therefore, you are no longer with the school as of that time. So I sent it to your home address. Mr. Monaco was still on the roster of employees and co-director.
Okay, that's fair enough. And
Just want to make sure that we're focused on Mr. Monaco's hearing.
yes. Okay, I think I asked all the questions because the only thing that was outstanding was the conversations that he had with Mr. Monaco, that I'm not assigning any nefarious reasons behind him not remembering, but it's.
So you don't have any more additional questions for Mr. Griffin?
Not as it pertains to Mr. Monaco.
Okay.
And his training and what he knew or what he could have known, what
So
he has testimony.
I think then I have a few follow-up questions. I'll try to be as brief as possible. And then if you have witnesses, you can bring them forward at that time.
Okay, this is going to be for Monaco.
Correct.
Okay, very good.
Okay. Mr. Griffin, I want to direct your attention to page 12 of the book. You really need those glasses.
Yes, I do. There's a day when I didn't, but that is long gone.
Can you tell us, I think you already testified, but can you just briefly tell us what the document on page 12 is?
It's a school training notification of change form, adding John Monaco as a co-director.
All right, and I'd like you to go to the box second from the bottom, the first word being affirmation.
Yes.
And could you read to us where it starts, I hereby affirm?
I hereby affirm under penalties of perjury that the information provided in this application is true and to the best of my knowledge and belief. I understand that any material misstatement may be deemed sufficient reason to deny approval or may result in the suspension or revocation of the school approval if issued. I hereby acknowledge that I have thoroughly read and understand General Business Law, Section 89N and Part 6027, 28, 29 of Title 9 of the New York State Official Compilation of Codes, Rules, and Regulations. I further understand that DCJS may ask for additional information documentation.
Okay, and who's signing this document?
John Monaco.
All right, and is that also notarized?
Yes.
Okay, and what's the date on that?
October 4th, 2021.
All right, and Mr. Griffin, is there a requirement that school directors receive training either in statute or regulation?
It's just a training bulletin, so no.
Okay, and when you say training bulletin, what do you mean by that?
It's just a procedure that comes out. It's not in reg or in law. It's a policy, basically, if you will.
Okay, so DCJS is not obligated to conduct any director orientation training other than through the or through the bulletin?
There is no regulatory or legal through 7A requirement that I'm aware of.
Okay. And as a person who conducts the director orientation and is tasked with enforcing and informing about the rules and regulations, are co-directors and directors responsible for the activities of their respective schools?
Yes, under 6028.6.
Right. And with respect to the roster sheets that are completed by schools, can you just describe how they are reviewed by your office?
Our office receives them from the school. We add the people. We make sure that the instructor is noted, make sure the times of the training are noted.
When you say we,
Sorry.
does that mean you or?
DCJS, no, I'm sorry, our administrative staff. So the administrative staff make sure that all the students are registered correctly and are on the roster. We make sure that the times of the training are noted, the address of the training is noted, and the administrative staff make sure that the instructor is also noted.
All right. And when would you have an opportunity to review specific rosters?
During 2022, I did assist Becky since it was just she and I with everything. There were days that I also reviewed rosters.
And were there also, as part of an investigation into a complaint, would it be typical for you to review a roster?
Yes, as previously testified to with the rosters that appear in this book.
Okay. And then, aside from the, your memos to file that are included in the materials in the book, documentation of rosters and enrollment forms, who provides that information to the ECADIS portal?
Well, in this case, according to the submitted rosters, it was Matthew Cochran.
Okay. And those come from the school themselves?
Yes.
Okay. So the roster forms are maintained by a security school?
There is and Becky might be, there is a spot in the portal where they can look at their approved training.
But are they required to input that information into the portal?
Yes, they have to within 7 days under regs, so the students get credit.
And are they required to maintain that information for any period of time that you know of?
They're required to maintain the enrollment forms for 2 years.
Okay.
And I'm not the records from the rosters are, it's on a computer, so I imagine that that's there forever.
Okay. Those are all the questions I have.
Okay, do I get to ask Mr.?
I think at the discretion of the chair, I would not object to limited, it needs to be limited to the question
If
that
you
I
do have
It's
any
gonna be
questions,
real-
there only can be with respect to what you just asked.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. You said you reviewed the roster sheet submitted that were in question for whatever discrepancies that they had. And you confirmed that they were submitted by whom?
Matthew Cochran.
And were any submitted by John Monaco?
No.
Okay.
That I recall.
Okay. That you recall or no? It's either no.
I understand, sir. I understand.
You can take your time and look at them.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, that's going to be my last question for, okay? If we could. Mr. Griffin, you can look, but it's going to be no. You can
So
vote.
if you already know the answer, then why are you asking the question?
Because because council asked him a question about the submission of Rasa sheet, she was showing the culpability of the co-director. She was asking a line of question that was she talked about John's signature.
Sir, she asked questions.
And my question was based on her question.
Okay,
So
so if
he-
you already have the answer, we're gonna move forward.
Yeah,
We're gonna move
so, I
forward.
mean,
We're
he-
gonna move forward.
But
Miss-
he can look, but it's not there.
So if you already know that, why'd you ask the question?
I think it's fair to make a record. That's fine. I have no-
Especially when you have previously asked the question.
No, but it was in response to her question. She was trying to make a point, I was trying to make a point.
Wait. Ms. Glavin, any other information that you would like to present, any other witnesses?
No, Madam Chair, thank you.
Mr. Archibald, what additional information would you like to present as it applies to Mr. Monaco?
I would like Mr. Monaco to testify on his behalf.
Okay.
There's a dearth of witnesses here. So Mr. Monaco, during the investigation, was not asked a single question by anybody from DCJS. So now's our opportunity to be heard. So I would like Mr. Monaco to be heard.
Okay. Please begin.
And when, is it possible, Madam Chair, that after I present Mr. Monaco, that the council gets an opportunity to ask? Can we do that?
Yep, that's,
And they can,
That's not a problem if we can just get started,
yes,
please.
yes. Mr. Monaco, how long have you been doing training for your entirety? I mean, within the Department of Correction and within the
Since
DCJS?
1985,
So how many years is that in total?
23, 33, 38 years, 40 years, close to 40 years. With my experience as a school teacher as well, prior to going to Department of Corrections.
Do you enjoy teaching?
I love it.
Can you just give us a basic, quick background of your experience as a teacher?
I graduated LIU for Health and Phys Ed in 1982, went into the Correction Department 83 at the end, January 83 at the end of January. Stayed in the department in Rikers Island to 86. I was asked to go to on an interview to go to the Correction Academy, where I was a phys ed teacher, health and phys ed teacher, instructor there. I then cross-trained, also was a liaison through the Department of Correction with DCJS for peace officer registration. I used to work very closely with Mr. Dickman. I don't know if anybody remembers him. Made captain, went to Rikers Island, other facilities, was brought back to the academy to be a supervisor / instructor, chairperson of the phys ed department. Spent most of my career, rest of my career there. I was asked to go to the emergency service unit for corrections to help out with their training and beef them up, which I did. Retired in 2003 and started my own security business, which I had one security training school. I had a PI firm and a licensed security contractor. 2006, the police commissioner reached out to me, Bernard Carrick, asked me if I could do some training in Jordan, train the Jordanian Police Department and prison guards. It was a pretty big deal. I reached out to my friend, Joseph Archibald, who I worked with in academy and corrections. I said, I have a big training project. I need you to help me. He came over, he helped me. My wife was pregnant with twins at the time, so he was a big help. We finished that task. He came to work for me at A&M Professional Security, which he was an instructor. He then, I opened up another place. I think at this time we were speaking, I had the Bronx, I'm not sure, maybe you weren't there, the Bronx, not the Bronx, Harlem facility, where we evidently closed because we didn't have a fire certificate. We were given that building for free. With the premise, we would train the people in the community, and I would put them to jobs at the Javits Center because that was one of my contracts at the Javits Center and Hammerstein Ballroom. And then we couldn't get the fire department to come and inspect it, and the building was a little leery about them coming into the building, so we we spoke about, we closed that one. We then went to Long Island. I opened up the one in Long Island because I was kind of sick. I got injured and got some illnesses working at the World Trade Center for 4 months. And I couldn't do it no more. So Mr. Archibald took over the facility at the Hempstead. They named it I Spy. He took over all my personnel because we also had the fingerprints. And I just didn't want to leave them all, they all had families, so he took them over. And then COVID hit. I would come teach a few times. We had a couple instructors, Erica and a few other girls there. And what happened was COVID hit, and we also had firearms. We had the range, we were doing firearms training, and both our instructors, Frank Tribino and Steve Plutone, both passed away with COVID. And we just said, we can't do this no more. We lost about 40 of our students as well. 70. So we closed it. And then I got a call one day.
A question, at any point during your career as an instructor, certified by DCJS, did you have to consult with Mr. Griffin?
Many times.
When you say many times, do you mean 2 or 3?
Much more.
And what was the nature of most?
Fire inspections, outside training, a couple range questions I had. And just, folks not being on a roster or they're not getting certified, the wrong social security number or something like that. A request for a driver's license, social security card.
And how did you come to be a co-director with Bushido?
Well, again, I was working for another company, AEM, is it AE?
I don't know.
Erica, she took over the Long Island facility. I helped to set that up. And I told her I would give her all my clients outside. They always wanted me to be there. So I said, I'll help you out. I'll go there, I'll start training them. And then next year you could pick them up. And one day I got a call from her saying, where are you? I was driving from, I think I was in Maryland driving.
John, how did you get to be an instructor with Bushido? Was there any conversation that you had with Mr. Griffin that led you to become an instructor for Bushido, co-director?
Oh, okay. Well, we're jumping. Let me back up. So real quick, I'm working with Erica. I get a call. She says, you better stop. I'm in trouble. Mr. Griffiths just suspended me. I think she gave out a certificate and she had no enrollment forms. So I said, I pulled over. I said, can you call him? Let me know because I got to turn around. And she said, you can go. He said it was okay because it was already approved. And I was at Clarkstown, New York. I went to do the training. And then I said, I can't deal with her no more. I can't be in this position to lose all these clients. And then I got a call from Bushido or Matt Cochran asking me if I could come and help them out. And really what he wanted was all my clients, all my outside training. So I said to him, I'll stay like a year and a half. I will help you out. I'll do one rotation with all these outside training companies, and then you can take it over. And I said, I believe I spoke to you several times. You told me to just sign up for the co-director so I could initiate the emails to you and also sign the enrollment forms and the, what's the other form?
The receipts?
Not the receipt. I don't touch any money. They get billed.
Certificates?
I'm sorry?
Certificates?
No, I don't sign, no. They would be mailed through Bushido with the check. So I never touched any certificate or no money. All I would do is just sign enrollment forms, and I was just a liaison between Bushido. If it was the museum, hospital, college, whatever it was, that's how I would, that was my responsibilities. At no time do I touch money from Bushido, sign a certificate, give a certificate out, sign any enrollment forms. The girls will tell me, John, the class is ready for you. I come and teach. The class is over, I go home. So that was the extent of my co-director.
That's all the questions I have for Mr. Monaco. If the council will,
Ms. Glass?
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. My apologies, I'm sorry.
Don't forget about me.
I'm sorry. My apologies.
No, no problem. Mr. Monaco, are you familiar, I want to direct your attention to page 12 in the book.
Yes, I am.
And you're familiar with that notification of change form?
Yes,
And is that your signature on
yes,
the
it
bottom?
is, yes, it is.
And you submitted this form?
Yes. Yes, I
And
did.
you are familiar with the affirmation?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and given your many years' experience in this field, are you familiar with the regulations?
Yes,
And you're familiar with that classes are required to be a certain length of time?
absolutely.
Okay, and that classes, that individuals should sit for a class?
Yes,
Would you agree with me that it's a good policy to provide certificates at the end of training?
yes,
And you mentioned earlier the girls,
Mhm.
and are those employees of Bushido?
Yes.
Okay, and what do they do?
They would do, phones, the mail, write the enrollment forms, help the students out with the enrollment
Do they
forms,
process applications
process applications,
for students, potential students?
I believe so,
Okay, and then they provide the certificates,
I believe so.
and are they all women?
Most of the time, the women, there were some guys in there.
And the class, just for reference, on page 65, the training roster from June 14th, 2022,
Yes,
it lists you as the instructor.
yes.
And do you have this to believe that that's accurate?
That I was the instructor?
Yes.
Yes, I was the
And
instructor.
what type of course was that?
Page 65 says 8-hour pre-assignment.
All right. And do you have any reason to believe that that's not accurate?
The class? No, that's the correct class.
All right. And did you teach an 8-hour annual on that day as well?
No, I did not.
And did you teach an 8-hour annual on June 13th?
I don't recall what I taught, what class I taught that day.
And I'm gonna go now to page 59. And page 65. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not right. On the wrong. I meant to say, page 117. Is an 8-hour annual in-service training that was held on June 11th, 2022. And do you recall if you taught that class?
I don't have no knowledge of me teaching that class. I see it says, Jean Johnson teaching that one.
And do you know Jean Johnson?
Yes, I do.
And is she an African-American woman?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco, were you aware of any complaints related to I-SPY investigations made to the Division of Criminal Justice Services?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, and were you, the company on Long Island that you said that you worked with, were you aware of complaints made to DCJS regarding that company?
What do you mean by complaint?
Complaints of improprieties at the school?
Meaning, I don't understand what you mean.
Complaints of improper paperwork or
You mean inaccurate
inappropriate
paperwork?
certificates?
I'm sorry.
Yes, yeah, anything.
I mean, yes, girls did make some mistakes on the rosters and stuff on occasions, as far as I know.
And do you know if that was remedied?
Yeah, I would believe so, yeah.
But were you
We
aware
were
of
never
that?
closed, we never warned, I never got a notification by anyone from DCJS that that was a problem.
And are you aware, based on your experience in training, that providing a certificate without
Training,
without any training would be a very serious violation?
yes.
I have no more questions, thank you.
Did you have any follow-up questions to Ms. Lavin's questions?
For who? For Mr. Griffin?
No, for
No,
me,
no.
for me.
Oh, for John, I'm sorry.
No, based on the questions that she just asked, do you have any follow-up?
No, I'm confused. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. You asked him about I-SPY in Long Island. I didn't understand that line of question. I was going to object, but it just.
I believe there was testimony about his involvement with different security guard schools that you had.
Oh, that wasn't I-SPY, that was that EAM or EMA.
So those questions were directed towards that testimony.
Okay, so I want the record to reflect it wasn't I-SPY because you said I-SPY.
I did say I-SPY. I believe that Mr. Monaco mentioned I-SPY.
No.
I-SPY and EMA as well.
He did.
There was
He
4
said that-
schools there, 3 schools there.
He mentioned that I took over. He didn't say that there was any problem with I-SPY.
No, that's why I asked him if he was aware of any
Okay,
concerns.
no, there was no question.
No.
That's it.
Members of the council, do you have any questions for Mr. Monaco?
I do. Mr. Monaco, just a very simple question. Did you ever do either an 8-hour pre-assignment or a 16-hour on-the-job training or an 8-hour annual? Did you ever do one where you know that you did the class and that it was less than 8 hours?
If I had a few students, I might have got through it a little quicker. You know, might have finished up in 7 hours, 7.5 hours. But, you know, I'm not giving certificates out and telling people to leave. Matter of fact, I kick people out for sleeping in the class and on their phones, actually.
Okay. Now, when you kicked somebody out, did they get a certificate?
No, they got their money back. Told to find another school.
Are there other questions, Mr.
I'm good.
Yeah, Michael.
Mr.
What's the difference between chair and co-chair, in your opinion?
Chair and coach, I mean, co-chair, co-director?
You submitted that you're a co-chair. Co-director, sorry.
Like a backup, in case the director goes down, he's sick, I would fill in.
So the duties of the chair, are they ever conducted by the co-chair?
I've never done it. I was always, the director is the boss.
So my question is, perhaps listing you, applying to be the co-chair started this problem?
Yeah, I would imagine, yeah, now to look at it. I mean, I understand what it says there in that,
There's a list of responsibilities, I'm
Yes.
sure, that go with that.
but again, my fault, I was just under the impression that I'm just gonna handle the outside duties.
It's a title, but I
Title.
think it's more than a title.
Yeah.
In the definitions that Mr.
Yeah,
Griffin had.
yeah. I heard it,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Any Any questions, Mr. Ventura?
No, no.
Mr. Barr?
No, I'm good.
Mr. Hall?
No.
I have 2 questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have a written agreement with Mr. Cochran with respect to your serving as co-director of the school?
No, just a verbal.
Did you know anything about Mr. Cochran's business acumen?
Before, no, I had met him right as he called me up to come and help him.
Once you started working with him, did you have any idea as to what type of?
No, because I
business-
came in and taught, they were in different rooms, and, once I left, I left.
Did you have any processes, systems, or controls in place to ensure that the staff, the girls, or the administrative staff would make sure that that everything being done would be in compliance with the regulations?
As the instructor, I did not, I would just let them know the class was done, and here's the roster sheet, or, if it was the 8 or 16, they all passed, If I flagged anybody, we would retest them, but that was it, yeah.
As co-director, did you have any processes, systems,
No,
or controls in place?
only for the outside agencies that I went out and taught.
I have a question. Are you saying then that even though you were co-director of the school, you weren't really in a management position, that you would go in, they'd tell you to come in and teach whatever class, you'd go in, you'd spend the 8 hours or 7.5 hours teaching that class, and then you'd leave and have nothing else to do?
Responsibilities I had was just scheduling the outside training, sending the notification to DCJS, talking with, getting times and paperwork ready to go. The girls would give me a list of enrollment forms and advisory forms and handouts, and I would go to the site and train, bring all that stuff back, and leave it on the desk at night and go home.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any witnesses that can attest that on April 13th or April 14th, you conducted the training for its entirety?
Was that an 8 and 16-hour class? Because it was big Greystone. Greystone used to come. It was an agency, and what's the other agency that came down? That Matt had, the shelters. They would come down. 90% of them would be those individuals.
And did you maintain any of your own documentation to track when you delivered training and which classes you delivered on which dates?
Just in my calendar book that I kept, a little notebook,
Okay, I don't have any other questions. Any other council members have anything to add?
You, ma'am. So we heard his definition of co-chair. What is the council's or legal definition for co-chair that he director? Yeah, that he took over, that maybe he
I
didn't.
think I think what I understand is that you're trying to ask Mr. Griffin to talk about what are the responsibilities of a
Or
co-director.
whoever has the answer.
Yeah, I mean, it would be Mr. Griffin as the security guard program person.
Yeah,
would
because
answer that.
maybe there's procedures and policies that were necessary to fill that form out, indicating I'm going to be the co-director, that maybe he didn't understand, and that we understand that he didn't fulfill.
As I tell people, the director and co-director are really, from our perspective, they can both get portal access. They can both sign certificates of completion. They can both, submit rosters. And they can make changes to the school. If it's a training site or whatever. They're
Okay, so there's a title that they bestowed on you.
Yes.
A title and responsibilities. Any other questions from the council members?
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm just going to ask questions based on the questions he was asked, and that's it. Just now.
I'm going to ask questions of who?
I'm going to ask questions based on the questions that were just asked by council.
Who are you going to ask those questions?
Monaco.
Okay.
Mr. Monaco. From your understanding of being co-director, I almost said co,
Director, yeah, director.
it's co-director, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you perform, from your view, the same duties as Mr. Cochran, who was the director?
No,
Other than your time there teaching, did you stay in the office?
no,
Did you sign any documents as co-director, other than the outside training?
just this form here that we're all looking at.
So after the form, the only thing you signed after that is,
Sure. Nothing, no forms. Just the outside training requested.
so all of the work, as far as administrative, did you do any of it?
None.
Excuse me, can I ask a question? Something just came to mind, forgive me. Other than getting paid as a teacher, did you get paid any money at all for being co-director?
No.
Or was the teaching salary inflated because you were co-director?
No.
So I'm the president of my company. If my company does something wrong, I'm liable for a misdemeanor on the corporate end. And I'm also liable other ways. So you basically have a position where your other co-director is more liable than you,
The director,
the director,
yes.
the co-director.
No,
I'm the co-director.
Oh, so
I'm his
there's only-
underling.
So there's not co and co, it's director, co-director?
Director,
Okay,
yeah.
right, something I'm understanding.
Just for clarification, if I understood what Mr. Griffin said, there's no hierarchy. Once you sign on to become a co-director, it's basically this DCJS sees it the same as being a director. It's just that there's multiple directors.
No.
No?
There's one
That's not, is
director.
that what the regulations?
I don't know that,
No, it's one
that
director.
Mr. Monaco is qualified to answer that question, how DCJS views it. Or,
But just so I'm clear, what I heard you say was, your understanding was that you're an underling,
Yes.
to use your word.
Yes.
An underling to Mr.
Yeah, I'm a
Cochran,
subordinate.
Since he was the director.
Yeah, I'm a subordinate to him, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Zimmerman. Mr. Monaco, as co-director, is it your understanding that you have the same authority, rights, and responsibilities as the director, regardless of whether or not you exercise them or not?
I didn't think I did have the same, because first of all,
Under-
I was not only that, but I was not part of the business. I'm just an employee, not a principal. So I had no say in what was going,
But as a director, as a co-director, is there any instance that you are aware of in your knowledge of the rules and regulations that govern security guard schools that there is a distinction anywhere?
I thought there was a distinction, yes.
And do you know what led you to believe that?
Just the emails,
What emails are you
I
referring
mean,
to?
well, the emails that I received, I never would receive any literature from DCJS. It would always go to the director. It was never CC'd me. So I was under the understanding that I was a backup and my specific role was outside training. I'm the director for outside training.
And you previously served as a director.
Yes.
Did you have any co-directors in that role?
I've had, yes, and the same thing. I had one of the young ladies, when I was out sick, she would fill in for me.
And when you, what is it, if you were to contact or to fill in as director, is there any distinction in the rules and in the responsibilities and the obligations from a director?
No, I would have been more active. I would have reviewed all the documents, the rosters.
But
I would have signed the
With
certificates.
respect to if you were to submit a roster, Would you be allowed to do that as co-director?
I believe so, in lieu of the director, yes.
If you,
But
is there anything that you couldn't do as co-director that you can do as director, not with respect to your specific Bushido school, but in general, if you're aware?
I'm not aware.
So in the affirmation, it says here, for school director, I further understand that as the school director, I must attend the school director orientation seminar if required by the division. So did you have to attend the school director orientation?
No, he already had that. This is a year later, maybe. I never took any.
No problem. I just understand when you get a title, there's certain responsibilities that go with it, but.
You didn't have any proprietary interest in this business, correct?
None.
I've been an instructor for DCS for 30 years. I'm also a master instructor for DCS. I was a co-instructor many times, a co-director many times, and I was a school director many times. I've taught many classes about being a school director. I've included classes. And it was my belief and understanding throughout all these years that a co-director and a school director have the same responsibilities. If they didn't have the same responsibilities, a school could have the co-director do all the paperwork and the director would be clear. So they both would have to have the same responsibility. The co-director has to have the same responsibility as a director of a school. That's my statement.
All right. But, okay. But why would, I'm trying to wrap my head around your statement.
I don't know. I think this might be appropriate for a summation.
Okay,
I don't think we can direct questions towards the council members.
okay, I just didn't
Right.
make any sense to me. Okay, I have no more questions for Mr. Monaco. I have no questions pertaining to what was just asked of Mr. Monaco. And so as far as Mr. Monaco's hearing, if anyone has any more questions, you could ask him. If not,
I think that at this time, it would be appropriate if you would like to make a brief statement. And then I will make a brief statement, and then we'll be done with this hearing.
matter of fact, John Monaco was my instructor when I went through the academy. That's how old he is. And he's also old-fashioned. But one of the things John Monaco is not, he's not a scoundrel. Never been a scoundrel. I could not convince John Monaco into making a crime. If he's guilty of trusting people. John, I always get on him because he's really quick to take a back roll to anybody. Doesn't matter the age, he doesn't wear his bravado on his sleeve. In his mind, if he's co-director, and I understand that co-director and the director are the same, that's the way you've always taught it, but everybody doesn't have the same thought process. John, and this is no disrespect to John, because I love him, he's not a alpha type individual. So if Matthew is the director, he's not going to do anything unless Matthew can't do it. He's not viewing himself as, you're the director, but I'm the co-director. It's not John Monaco. And at any time, based on his relationship with DCJS, at one point even working within DCJS, if there was a discrepancy, any phone call could have solved that discrepancy. But at no point during this investigation, you think a guy with 40 years experience deserves A phone call? A phone call. John, Jeannie's name is on the list. Did you teach the class or did Jeannie teach the class? And in my opinion, if a class is taught and Jeannie teaches it instead of John or John teaches it instead of Jeannie, what difference does it make if the class is taught? From my observation of John Monaco, he comes in, he teaches, and again, no disrespect, he's not really computer, you know, got people that don't do computer, that's probably why he doesn't do a lot of computer stuff.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I believe that the summation should be focused on testimony that we heard today.
Okay.
And not your personal
Okay,
knowledge.
okay, well, testimony that we heard, no single person, you have 135 pages of discovery, evidence, the accusation in the letter, which slightly differs from the affidavit, which slightly differs from the narrative. No person has identified John Monaco as committing any violations of the security guard policy and procedure. You have a person who submits a statement, Ms. De La Rosa, I think she's 19, who submits a letter that says she's outraged that she didn't get a class. You're a teacher, and there are other people here, I can't identify a teacher. When has a 19-year-old ever been outraged about not getting taught a class? You said something that rang true earlier about other schools, that you sometimes have to vet complaints because sometimes the complaint is from the competitor as opposed to a real person, so you have to be mindful. And I noticed personally, if I'm selling certificates, I could sell a lot more than 14. That's nothing. If you're selling certificates, you're not going to sell 14 or 13 or 10 or 5. If the word's out or no one has to sit in the class, you'll have to beat them off of you. John Monaco has not been mentioned in any part, any transactional part, other than his name being listed as co-director. And okay, he's co-director, you see the co-director and the director is the same. If the co-director and the director are the same, why not just call them both directors? Just call them both directors, and then they're equally. But I know I wouldn't like to be held responsible for anyone else's behavior. I know that after 40 years of teaching, I wouldn't want to have my certification revoked for something clearly I had no part of. He doesn't have to sign for anything. He never submitted a roster sheet. I don't think, John, do you know how to submit a roster? He does not submit a roster sheet.
No, I don't.
He does not submit a roster sheet. And, you know, you have to have a certain amount of trust in this world that when you're doing things that people that you're working with are going to be trustworthy and do. And with John, I'll tell you something about John. John loves to teach. He loves to teach. After 40 years of teaching, he's still doing it. I don't know if you noticed, but John has physical inhibitions because of advanced age, 911 syndrome, and, you know, just growing older. And every day he still gets out of his bed because teaching is something he looks forward to. Mr. Griffin, you're a teacher, and you know people fall asleep, they don't pay attention, and nobody's anxious to be there. Nobody is anxious to be there. In respects to John Monaco, he's always enthusiastic to teach. If you visited Bushido and you saw Mr. Monaco set up, he has the flip chart, he has the screen, he has the whiteboard, and all the information that the students need to know is right on the board. So when you come in, you don't have to ask, Who's the instructor? The name is on the board. Is that? The name's on the board. Your instructor today is John Monaco. The date is already there. And, you know, it's a little sad that a guy who's had an illustrious career, hangs in the balance of a 19-year-old who claims she's so outraged for not getting taught that she's going to call the Attorney General. And, by the way, I'm from the Bronx. Bronx people don't talk the way she spoke in that letter.
Sir, let's keep it to this case.
Okay, well, it is
That's
this
not
case.
appropriate.
Okay, well, noted. I'm just saying that it's something suspicious about that complaint.
Then say it's something suspicious about that complaint and.
And I have to, well,
Summarize.
I'm a passionate person. I have to
I
express with
understand. We all are,
passion.
that's why we're
I'm
here.
especially when you malign a person, and then you're not here to be impeached. So you can say anything about anybody, you end up here, and that's it. A hearsay, second party, third party hearsay, whatever. It's nowhere near fair that you can judge somebody on statements, and the person who makes a statement doesn't have the courage to show up. I'm here to look Matt Griffin in the face because there is no time Mr. Griffin couldn't pick up the phone and call me, or Mr. Monaco. He's been in the unit long enough. Formal introductions were made between Mr. Monaco and Tom Canning. And as Mr. Canning was on his way out, and I'm not saying that you're lying when you say you don't remember, but at a certain point, he would refer everything to you. If we called up Tom Canning, regardless of what you thought about him, he'd say, nope, call Matt Griffin. That was the reason why we had many communications, because we would always be referred to Matt Griffin. And all I'm saying is, if you have an allegation so serious where you're going to malign the end of this guy's career, can you give him a call? Maybe it's a misunderstanding. Do you know about this? Do you know about that? He's done it before. Why not now? That's all I'm saying. Director, co-director, my opinion, not the same. In his view, clearly, he doesn't see him as the same. Clearly. This is the council. You're going to make a recommendation. If you're going to hold co-director and director responsible, call them both directors. Don't call them co-director and co-director. Because once you call something different than the other, it's got to be different. It's got to be different. Can't be the same. You own a business. You don't have a you can have a co-owner. Or sometimes you tell your business partner, your co-owner, you say, no, I'm an owner. Like you. So that's all I'm saying. Be fair. Be fair.
Thank you.
Because with all the time you took to investigate this, the one thing you didn't take time to do is make a single phone call to a man that you know been in the business, a man you had access to, a man that you've emailed back and forth, a man who's sought your counsel and received your counsel, and ironically took a position based on your suggestion to make the efficiency of Bushido run better. And it's come back to bite him. And I for surely am not claiming that you're lying, Mr. Griffin, because I knew that you're inundated with, overwhelmed by work. But that for sure, was the case. Because John wasn't looking to be co-director of anything. And here we are, him being accused of selling certificates. That's preposterous. Okay.
I don't know if I'm really allowed to talk, but since I'm not at the table, but most of the communication you're referring to was actually between me and John Monaco, not Matt Griffin.
No, that's that's fine. But but John, so you're saying that when you wrote to Matt Griffin, you were the one answering the emails?
I handle most of the general inbox for security guard.
No, not the general inbox. I'm talking about when he wrote directly, not the general inbox. He's written directly to Matt, and he's spoken to Matt Griffin over the years over the phone.
Duly noted.
I think you're talking about the licenses.
I have a question of the government's end. And that is, in the last couple of years with COVID and everything, how much of this has been done out of the office versus out of virtual or residential areas?
I'm not sure I'm not,
In other words,
have we done it remotely?
I have relatives working for the state and other states that are basically working from their houses.
Yeah, no, we do have telecommuting here, yes.
Or
That's the issue.
telecommunicating.
Yes.
But is it also coming where the people from the state have access to their files fast, or to know exactly everything that?
Yeah, we're operating completely as we always have been, but when we have had a telecommuting, we have telecommuting, but access to all the same information.
That's fine.
Yeah.
There may have been a little blip in the beginning, but.
No, like 3 days, if that, maybe a day. No.
So with that being said, that concludes the portion that's focused on.
Well,
I think
I was gonna make a brief statement. I'll keep it very short. I know you're about to run. Members of the council, I appreciate your time. Appreciate Mr. Monaco and Mr. Archibald for their enthusiastic defense and response. And I would say that, that this is not about Mr. Monaco's lengthy and commendable career. This is about the role of directors and co-directors and the responsibilities that they have as the parties in a school that are required to make sure that the rules are followed and that proper procedures are being implemented. I think the regulation clearly state what needs to be done, and there is uncontroverted testimony that those things were not done at Bushido. There's testimony from Mr. Griffin that the paperwork does not match what individuals who received certificates were told him. To Ms. Vasquez and Ms. De La Rosa separately reached out to the security guard office and told them of these inconsistencies related to receiving certificates. Ms. Vasquez, Ms. De La Rosa specifically said that an instructor named John told her it was okay, that the course was not an 8-hour annual, but a 16, that the course on that day, someone else there was going to teach a 16-hour, or was there for a 16-hour course, and that she was there for an 8-hour. She was told, oh, don't worry about it, and then left 20 minutes later. Those facts are what they are.
Can I make an objection? Because that's not what she said.
No.
The testimony that you heard and the documents that have been admitted, I believe reflect those facts. I think that they are clear, and Mr. Monaco has clearly said that he is well aware of the rules and the importance of those rules in running a school and providing proper training and certification to security guards. I just submit that the council review the documentation provided, and I would submit that reflects what happened here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lynn.
We have to go into executive session, and I think you have before you, Chair, what the standard of proof is. And so that could be the guiding principle to just ensure that everybody on the council knows what the standard of proof is in this type of proceeding. So at this point, we probably need to go into executive session.
So at this point, we'd like to go into executive session. We'll ask everyone outside of the council to leave the room. We'll ask that you pause the recording.
It is back out.
And we're back. Now we'd like to move forward with the information regarding Mr. Archibald.
Okay.
Ms. Lavender, are you going to?
Yeah. Thank you all for your patience today. Hopefully we will move forward a little quicker here. This is our second proceeding today. And this is related to Mr. Archibald, Joseph Archibald, who is here with us. He is,
Exactly.
there are two regulation violations that are alleged in this matter. They are violations of 9 New York Code of Rules and Regulations, 6029.3 minimum requirements for security guard instructor certification, and section 6029.7 subdivision C revocation. We will address those now, and we will take testimony from Matthew Griffin. Good afternoon, Mr. Griffin.
Good afternoon.
Can you, because we will try not to do too much repeating, but because this is a separate proceeding, can you introduce yourself to council?
Matthew Griffin, Associate Training Tech, Division of Criminal Justice Services.
All right, and can you just tell us a little bit about your position with the Division of Criminal Justice Services?
Work in the security guard program area, where we oversee security guard training schools, training instructors, and training waivers.
I'm just going to do a just quick overview because it's there's a separate record.
Can he waive it?
I'm sorry?
Can the gentleman waive it?
Are you, Mr. Archibald,
Yes.
are you comfortable with accepting the earlier testimony with related to Mr. Griffin's qualifications and position
Yes, I am.
into this
Thank
hearing?
you. Yes, I am.
Okay,
But let me just say, for the record,
sure.
I have copious amounts of exhibits to go through, and it's going to take some time. So I would like to know how you would like to handle it, because I will come back. I don't want to hold anybody up. I value everyone's time. I know people didn't expect to be here that long, but I'm passionate about what I'm accused of. And because I do have, I won't say lie, because I never say anyone lies. I say they are mistaken. And I don't say they do anything intentional. I say they make mistakes. I want the process to be fair to me. And looking at the time, there's not enough sufficient time between now and 5 o'clock where I can present my case thoroughly. Can I make a suggestion? I think we should end today's meeting and schedule another meeting at another time.
Go for it.
I agree.
Continue.
Third.
A continuation.
Providing it's not 6 months from now.
Hopefully it's a year, but
You know, I was gonna say just one thing just so you understand, Mr. Archibald, when we schedule these, there are, as you can see, a lot of people with a lot of demands, and so they're not easy to schedule. I'm not trying to rush you or put you in a bad position. We will schedule it as soon as we can with all of the parties involved, and, but it may not be, you know, next week, because it may take a little while for us to ensure everyone's calendar is available for the length of time. So just wanting to make sure you're aware that I'm not trying to push you one way or another, but that is just the logistics of what it takes to pull off one of these meetings.
I view this meeting as a formality. So I'm really here to just make sure everything's on the record. I'm under no illusion in my mind that I'll get fairness. But I have a lot of evidence, facts to present
that unfortunately, it needs time to,
Make sure, based upon your other statement, that you understood some of the challenges we have with, scheduling and things like that. We will schedule it as promptly as we can, but it may not be able to happen. It just may take a little bit of time.
Should we reach out to you or to Mr. Rayner for
you
scheduling?
reach out to my counsel, please,
Okay.
Okay.
and he'll reach out to me.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I want to
would
make
like-
sure you have an
I
opportunity.
would like
Yes, of course, I think we have to.
sufficient time, because what nobody knows here, especially Mr. Griffin, that's why I got these charges, I don't live in the United States.
Okay.
I have to have time to make all of my arrangements and make sure that I'm here, because most of the time, I'm not here.
And we, included in the scheduling, we can try to accommodate as best we can.
Of course, of course. We will certainly.
Just,
try to do our best.
just that I get enough time to know to make sure that I'm here in the States.
Why don't we just do one online and then we don't have to worry?
I won't do it online.
That's fine. So we'll coordinate with all of you, and we'll make sure that we do it far enough advance that you have a time to make your arrangements.
Going to take off?
We have to.
And by time in advance, I need no more than 3 weeks of notice.
Okay.
We'll do the best we can, sir.
I
We
need no
understand your
more than 3 weeks'
limitations,
notice,
and we
'cause
will
whatever I'm
definitely do what we
doing
can.
Out there, I can certainly finish it up and get back here.
Yeah, I mean, we'll do the best we can, sir, and I'll just try to work with you as best we can.
I'm making a motion to continue.
I second.
The move and properly second that we continue the case for Mr. Archibald at a later time and date to be determined at a time that's beneficial to all involved.
That's fine. Do, Colin,
Remember,
do we-
all in
we have
favor,
to
say
drive
aye.
it. You
Yeah.
have to clean your phone.
we have one last thing quickly. We just want to make sure we quickly address one last thing. I'm sorry, everyone, but, and this does not pertain to you, Mr. Archibald.
I'm just packing my stuff, so.
No, I'm saying you don't have to go on. It
With
doesn't-
respect to the Bushido Social Security School and the allegations related to Mr. Cochran, who did not appear today, he also did not notify anyone in the Office of Public Safety or the Division of Criminal Justice Services, Legal Services, that he was not going to appear. It would be our position that we should proceed as if he is waiving the right to his hearing, and that the revocation should proceed at this point.
Did he submit a written request for a hearing?
He did, and he was notified through an attorney and through certified mail. Certified?
Yes, I believe. it's
Certified
certain-
mail of the hearing date and time, place, location, all that. So I don't know,
He leaves the room when he's over.
right, we can leave you to consider that.
He wasn't notified through counsel or certified mail.
Are you representing Mr. Cochran now, Mr. Archibald?
No, but
Okay.
the certified mail that went to the address, the office is closed, so the certified mail the office is closed, so the certified mail went to a closed office. And when I tried to pick it up, when I went to try to pick it up at the post office, it had been, too much time went by, and I guess it came back to you.
Yeah.
So I know it was sent, because I saw the
There's a time
thing,
frame.
but it was too late.
For his trips.
That's what really happened.
I don't want to be rude, are we getting?
And that being said, will we table the other items on the agenda for today's meeting until our next meeting?
Yeah, I think that would be fine.
So
You guys can do whatever.
can I get a
Okay, make a motion that we adjourn.
properly second, all in favor, say aye.
Decision sheet.
Thank you, Mr.
I know
Archibald.
you're
It's my pleasure.
ready, Pat.
Recording is not.